Welcome back to the world. In today's video, we will be looking over all things .hack GU with a specific focus on Volume 2 of the trilogy. We'll talk about the story and its themes, the aesthetic of the world, and discuss all the various mechanics present within this entry and how they evolved from one volume to the next. With the announcement that a new game is in the works, now seems like the perfect time to continue down the path of talking about the .hack series. A series centered around a beautifully cryptic MMO. .hack GU sees us taking control of the player/character Haseo as they explore the online game known as the World R2, a dangerous environment where players seem to be slipping into comas and even disappearing completely. The world has a long history within the universe of .hack and has experienced its fair share of mysteries and problems. Secret keys, invisible bracelets, players being attacked, and intelligent AI trying to take over the net or save it. I've been interested in .hack for a long time, as early as waking up to episodes of Sign on my television late at night. I have a history series of the original 4 games and a retrospective on Volume 1 of the GU trilogy. I highly recommend checking those out first before watching this video, at the very least just Rebirth, the first retrospective in this specific trilogy series, especially if you are watching to get ready for the newly announced .hack 0. No, not that other .hack 0, this is a different .hack 0 that apparently isn't connected. Yeah, it's a little confusing. A multimedia behemoth, .hack has been a major part of my life growing up and continues to be as the series somehow manages to pull itself out from extinction and continue moving forward. CyberConnect 2 has many successful IPs and focuses under their belt, including the Ultimate Ninja Storm series for Naruto and Melodies of Steel. Despite that, they have never given up on one of their original series, their first one on the PS2, with a dedicated cult following, and that may have the biggest legacy the company has ever seen. .hack continues to be prevalent today, and borderline prophetic with its vision of a future where technology continues to further dominate. Its commentary on the prevalence and dangers that technology has, as well as its simulation of online culture, has aged like fine wine even today. I mentioned this at the start of the last video, but while .hack GU did have a remaster collection released, I will be playing on the original PS2 version from Volume 1 to 3. This is due to there being several gameplay changes and adjustments that don't match how I look back on the series, and thus wouldn't work for my personal retrospective. However, once the entire retrospective series is completed, I'll compile everything and include the new 4th chapter of the storyline that was included in the re-release. If you enjoy these videos, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Last time I recommended you all to tell your friends about .hack and spread the word, so that Bandai and CyberConnect 2 would continue creating new games within the series. Looks like that worked to me, so this time tell your friends to join my Patreon. Additionally, let this be your warning of potential spoilers surrounding all things .hack, not just with the trilogy alone. And since we went over a lot of the initial mechanics that return in this entry, I'll try to give a bigger focus on the storyline this time, story recapping. It's still an analysis, I promise. Feel free to stick around and learn a bit more about this series or reacquaint yourself before the release of .hack 0. With that out of the way, and a big potential spoiler warning for all things .hack again, I'm Super Rad, and this is the big .hack GU Volume 2 Reminisce Retrospective. I covered the majority of the development history in the last video, but .hack GU Volume 2 released on September 28, 2006 in Japan and May 8, 2007 in North America. That's around a 4-month gap within Japan, but a larger 7-month gap in North America between Volumes 1 and 2. The gap is a larger time frame considering the release timeline of Volume 1 between North America and Japan was around 5 months instead. An interview with Yuri Lowenthal, the voice of Haseo in the GU series, mentions how he didn't have much knowledge of .hack as a series, and it was up to the director to guide him when voicing his character. Despite this, Yuri came to appreciate Haseo for his asshole personality, but also the growth of the character that is especially prevalent within this volume. While GU Volume 1 had a special edition release that included the terminal disc as a companion piece to the entire trilogy, this wasn't re-released with each volume, and both Reminisce and Redemption would only have their base versions released with no special edition options. This is particularly annoying considering the terminal disc unlocks new video files for you to watch based on save data throughout the trilogy. both through just having saved data of the trilogy releases and data that includes the completion flag for making it to the end of each release. Without re-releasing the terminal disk in each volume, it became progressively harder to get your hands on it until the last Recode remaster years later, where it was included in the collection. Originally, the terminal disk entry included a recap of .hack IMOQ, the original 4 games in the series. From there, players could unlock various journal entries from Jun Banshoya as he discusses his involvement in Project GU and CC Corp's attempt to revive the ultimate AI known as Aura, using the epitaphs or phases found in the R1 version of the world, including Skaith, Innis, Magus, Fidhel, Gore, I still say it's Gore. It's Gore, I don't know why they say Gore, Maha, Tarvos, and Korbenik. And it's not Korbenik, it's Korbenik. It's Korbenik, and they say Korbenik. These phases, known as the Cursed Wave, were prevalent throughout IMOQ and acted as the series' major bosses that the protagonist, Kite, was tasked with defeating. After salvaging their data from the world, CC Corp attempted to use the phases by placing their data in special characters known as Epitaph PCs. The loss of Aura caused a crisis throughout the entirety of the net, and multiple engineers and AI developers were brought together to try and remedy this issue, with Jun being the representative of CC Corp. I went through the unlocked files on the terminal disk in Volume 1 of the last video, but these files are not unlocked in order. I recommend checking out that section of the video, if not the entire video, before watching this one, as they include the creation of the Restore Aura plan, the destruction of Mia, an introduction to Gyotaro Amagi, and more. Interim Report 5, Guardian Ubiquitous, discusses the disappearance of Aura in further detail. Between 2011 and 2014, the world R1 was within its golden era. This was thanks to the game being managed by Aura, the ultimate AI. However, the average player would not know that Aura even existed, and only a few within CC Corp itself were aware of this fact. Created by Harold Hewick, the genius programmer responsible for the creation of Fragment, which precedes the release of the world R1, Aura inherited all of his intellect, while her personality seemed to be based on the thoughtful beauty of Emma Wieland, who created the poem Epitaph of the Twilight, which the world was based on. Harold was obsessed with Emma, so it's no wonder an aspect of her is found within Aura. As an AI meant to be as human as possible, Aura was known to act impulsively from time to time. She even created a replica character of Kite that was used in a promotional giveaway campaign, setting the stage for the Legend of the Twilight manga and anime. 7 years after Pluto's Kiss, an event that caused every computer on the network to crash around the globe, Aura disappeared from the world. With her removal, the world began to fall apart, with various anomalies and crashes. This expanded out of the game itself and into the net as a whole. Developers believed this to be a virus leading to another network crisis. In reality, it was due to the disappearance of Aura. It was unknown why Aura disappeared from the network, but with her removal causing decay of the net as a whole, something needed to be done. Thus, CC Corp decided it was necessary to resurrect Aura, even though Harold was dead and couldn't be of any help. This led to the creation of Project GU. Interim Report 8, Genetics of the Unknown, focuses on Gyotaro Amagi, one of the main developers that was part of Project GU. At this point, Jun was concerned over the RA plan for reasons that are presently unclear. As of completing Volume 2, we have seen the beginnings of the RA plan in File 6, and don't have File 7 unlocked yet. Whatever the reason, he opposed Amagi attempting to experiment with the phases. With this worry in his mind, Jun removed Tarvos from the world and hid it in his computer. With Jun being the half-brother of the player behind the character Pi in .hack GU, it makes sense how Tarvos would have come into contact with her and made her a chosen one. Despite this sabotage, Amagi planned ahead and created dummy data to fill in Tarvos' place. Moving on with his plan, 7 of the 8 chosen ones were found and matched with their epitaphs, while Amagi took the place of the dummy epitaph user. Everything Amagi sought after, the recognition of being smarter than the legendary Harold Hewick, hinged on this. Amagi had attempted to fuse his mind with the ultimate AI to take over the network himself. Unfortunately, the experiment crashed, leading to the deletion of 80% of the World R1's data. If you remember from the last video, it was suggested that a fire destroyed the building housing the data servers, and this was the cause of losing that data, but this here is the true case. And with the crash, the Chosen 7 fell into comas. In Interim Report 9, Genocide of the Unfaithful, we learned that Jun tried to salvage what he could, and he managed to reacquire the Epitaph user for Magus. Amagi went insane, torching the building, which led to the fires mentioned earlier, and acted as a scapegoat for why the world was effectively destroyed. Jun suggests the failure was due to a lack of respect on Amagi's part, not only for the world but for Harold too, essentially leaving Amagi cursed by Harold's ghost. Project GU was also damaged and suspended. Following this, Jun resigned from CC Corporation. The terminal disk continues to be integral in understanding the events leading up to the .hack GU trilogy. Again, I can't stress enough how the disk should have been included in all volumes, similar to how each part of Liminality was released alongside IMOQ. These interim reports are not only crucial in understanding the backstory of GU, but also Amagi's storyline as it leads into future entries within the series. But with the latest entries of the disk out of the way, let's take a look at the game itself. Picking up immediately after the events of Volume 1, we get a bit of a recap to show what exactly is going on. After finally defeating Tri-Edge, or Azure Kite, nothing seems to have changed. Additionally, Adelie was attacked by AIDA, who was hiding in some coin lockers that looked like they came straight from the real world. Adelie was knocked unconscious, but didn't enter into a coma. Instead, she heard Haseo's pleas for her to awaken and managed to pull herself out of it, likely due to her also being a chosen one, housing the epitaph of Innis, the Mirage of Deceit. Waking up within the at-home or guild hall of GU, also known as Raven, Adelie's voice seems to be corrupted. It's a bit confusing here because as the player of the game, we can hear Adelie, but the characters within the game suggest that they can't despite responding to her. While not totally clear, what we are hearing is more like Adelie using text chat to talk to everyone since her microphone seems to be malfunctioning. But this left me scratching my head for a while as I don't think it was conveyed very well. We learned that Adelie's survival, or rather her not being placed into a coma, was thanks to the ability of Kun's epitaph, Magus, rather than her own, Innis. Assumingly using the power of propagation, which he also used in his fight against Haseo, Kun managed to save Adelie and bring her back to Raven's guild hall. Since Adelie can't speak, Kun suggests the tried and true turning it off and on again strategy, suggesting she log out and reboot. However, Adelie realizes that she can't log out, and she seems to be stuck in the game for the foreseeable future. A similar issue happened to Tsukasa in .hack Sign, although there are some major differences here. Similarly, Adelie realizes that she can't perceive her body and doesn't know where she is in the real world, instead feeling as though she is really in the game both mentally and physically. The issue is that Pai notices something similar. Soon, Kun and Haseo realize they are experiencing the same issue as well. No one knows where their physical bodies are at the moment because they are directly in the game. Everyone attempts to log out, but it doesn't work. Yatta arrives and tells everyone to calm down. All players in the world are experiencing the same issue at the moment, assuming they were logged in during the events at the end of the last volume. Despite these issues, the game is functioning normally. The team is sent out to the different root towns to search for answers. Meanwhile, we see that Adelie's character data seems to be corrupted as her arm begins to crack and decay. Panicking, she runs off to find Sakaki for help. For the better part of the game's opening, we will effectively be trapped in the world R2, meaning we can't log out to check our desktop, our email, etc. It's an enjoyable opening segment and really throws us into the thick of it right at the start before things slow down and the grind we are used to from Volume 1 slowly rears its head again. It's also one of the rare times we get to experience firsthand a phenomenon that has been present since the early days of .hack as a series. Being trapped in the world is a plot point that comes up more than once. But at this scale, with so many players who have no idea what is going on, we see the world turn into a place full of panic. Players wondering why this is happening and where they are, begging people for help and to tell them what is causing this. Adelie even gets harassed by a member of Kestrel who demands she tells him what's up, despite having no idea if she knows anything or not. Luckily, Adelie is saved from this interrogation when Sakaki intervenes, seemingly taking charge and bringing order back to Makanu by ordering other members of Moontree to help out. Haseo runs into the two and gets in an argument with Sakaki, leading to Adelie defending him and reopening the rift between Haseo and the girl slightly. Sakaki is so full of it here. He says something here that really shows just how hypocritical he is considering the events that will transpire in volumes 2 and 3. Don't you agree that it is the lust for power that is most certain to make fools out of people? Wow, no better foreshadowing than that for this guy. Raven meets up again with Adelie and the Serpent of Lore. Here we learn that a dummy server created by AIDA has appeared, and all players online at the time have been placed inside. This seems to be the root cause of what is preventing people from logging out. Pi explains that they are no different from the Lost Ones at the moment, and thus AIDA needs to be investigated more thoroughly as quickly as possible. Additionally, Adelie's epitaph Innis has been stolen. Without her epitaph, her character data is beginning to corrupt and degrade, hence why her hand was falling apart earlier. The team hypothesizes that if Adelie's character data is lost while stuck in the AIDA server, she may be lost as well, putting even more pressure on everyone to figure out a way to get out of the AIDA server, a mirror server, as soon as possible. We learn that the Morgana factor is what is placed into epitaph user PCs by CC Corp. But not just anyone can utilize these epitaphs, as we saw in the interim reports found in the terminal disk. Rather, during character creation, the epitaphs themselves, synonymous with the Morgana factor, choose characters to bind to. When Haseo created his character, he was bound to the epitaph of the Terror of Death, allowing him to use the avatar of Skaith. The terms all sort of meld together and are more confusing to lay out individually. Essentially, epitaph and Morgana factor are the same thing here, and this was the data salvaged from the world R1. Avatars are what the characters housing the Morgana factor used to battle AIDA and each other. So while epitaph users were created by CC Corp, it is out of their hands who gets to be a user. I hope you're writing this down. There will be a quiz later. I need you guys to know this. Yada suggests that Haseo should go and seek help from Moontree, to see if they can lend a hand in infiltrating AIDA areas and searching for a solution and getting out of here while providing as little information about their work to the guild as possible. Haseo is hesitant to go ask Moontree for help due to how he feels about Sakaki, but Zelkova, the guild leader, has taken a liking to our main character and would be more than willing to assist. Pi agrees to come along with Haseo to act as the more level-headed individual during these diplomatic negotiations. However, things quickly get turned on their head as Sakaki points out he is fully aware of Raven's secret identity of GU, as well as the existence of AIDA. Why does Sakaki know all of this? We'll learn more about that later. In the meantime, Moontree agrees to help in the search of finding a way out of the mirror server. This is also the first time we get introduced or hear from some of the other Moontree council members, namely Nala, who is a major character within this volume, and is secretly Yada undercover. I'm just going to say that now since we are going through the story in its entirety. We'll delve into Nala/Yata more later, but I think it's worth bringing up now because how is he here? If everyone, even admins, are stuck within their characters within the world, how is Yata able to control both Nala and Yata at the same time? Did being logged into both characters when the mirror server was created allow him to bounce back and forth between the two, or do his admin privileges give him some extra powers even here that others don't? It's never explained, and you're going to start seeing that that is one of GU's biggest issues with the story, namely that things are generally inconsistent when it comes to the rules of the world and the storyline of .hack GU. How is Nala able to do what he does, but no one else seems to be able to? We don't know and have to hypothesize. Is it only guild leaders that can have steam bikes, or can anyone get them? Why don't we see more people riding around on them? Alkaid, later on, has texts she says during dungeon runs, where you have her in the party, where she wishes she had one. So can she not get one since she's not a guildmaster? But then why do we learn later that Matsu of Moontree has one? Was he a guild leader before? Is he a guild leader now? You can technically be part of multiple guilds, so who knows? It's a very vibes-based storytelling strategy that doesn't take itself too seriously. The rules of the world, from our perspective as a player, are incredibly inconsistent for no good reason, which we'll see in grand display when we start getting into the arena again. We also get a brief introduction to Hiragi here, who is an individual that clearly identifies as a woman, but is constantly insisted upon as a man. This is like a running bit within Volume 2 that I found to be extremely exhausting and in bad taste. This trope of not respecting a character's desire to present themselves as they want, to feel comfortable in their character or their body, is tired and ignorant at best. They try to put Hiragi in situations where they are treated as an effeminate man quick to anger, and seem to act as if it is absurd that they would want to be considered a woman at all. The team gets orders to investigate an AIDA signal from Yata. Here, we run into a group of Kestrel PKers who are looking for people to blame for spreading viruses and even attack us over it. The panic and violence is beginning to spread as time goes on. We'll talk more about it later, but this is the first time we actively start getting to play the game again in terms of visiting areas and participating in battles. We will be running into AIDA a lot more in this volume than we have in the past, meaning even more avatar battles. Slow, exhausting avatar battles. We also get a short mail from Nala, who is coincidentally also investigating this area and asks us to come to the Beast Temple. If these terms are getting confusing for you, I do explain them in more detail within the first volume retrospective, but briefly, areas come in two versions, fields and dungeons. Some fields have beast temples you unlock by finding all the symbol fragments on a map. Within is a beast statue that has a chest of loot for you to secure, making that the main objective of the field, unless it's a boss field. Nala informs us that there is someone inside the temple and asks us to check on it, having no idea who it is as he just arrived himself. I think the most generous reasoning for this is that he doesn't want to go in alone for fear of being PK'd. People being in an AIDA-infected server isn't really suspicious on its own. After all, we just ran into multiple PKs here. So there's probably something else going on here with Nala, right? Sure enough, we find Ovan inside alongside Gabby, the guild leader of Kestrel. Ovan is Haseo's old guildmaster, who disappeared before the events of Volume 1 and returned during. Ovan suggests that he and Gabi are old friends, hence why they are hanging out. Gabi is aloof on the subject somewhat, but this plot point really doesn't go anywhere. There's seriously no real explanation for why Gabi is here, leaving you scratching your head and ending up disappointed when these plot threads ultimately go nowhere. Like I said, vibes-based storytelling. And I do want to point out that maybe there is an out-of-game explanation, as GU has two art/reference books with development information and interviews found within. They are .hack Archives 02 Black and 02 White, but they are in Japanese and I can't find a fan translation. If you know of one, please let me know in the comments, as I really want to read them. I really want to know what they have to say, and maybe explain some of the stuff that I have questions about. Ovan explains that they were investigating AIDA bugs similar to GU and Moontree as a means of looking for a way out. He points out that he knows this is the ultimate objective of GU as well, meaning everybody and their mom knows about Raven's true identity at this point. Nala tries to calm Haseo down by suggesting everyone is working towards the same goal, but Ovan suggests that Yata already knows what to do and is wasting everyone's time. According to Ovan, Yata knows the means of escape and hasn't told anyone yet. Even Pai seems to know, as Ovan asks her to corroborate. If this is a mirror server, it should have an operation folder somewhere that would allow for admin tasks to be completed. Anyone with intimate knowledge of the world from an admin level would know this, hence why Yata should know this already. An operation folder manages the systems that make the world, meaning it should have the ability to reintegrate the AIDA server data, the player characters, back into the real server. Pai tries to explain that there was no proof, so they didn't want to bring it up yet, but Ovan keeps pressing and pulling at strings. He talks in a way where everything Pai tries to offer as an excuse sounds absurd, tries to plant a seed of doubt that Yata is behind something. Why wouldn't Yata tell us? Perhaps he doesn't want to escape. At least Ovan theorizes that. An AIDA server would be the best place to research AIDA, and so maybe Yata doesn't want people to leave. It's so funny how easily this works on Haseo and Kun. They immediately get frustrated, angry, and demand answers from Pai before deciding to go back to the Serpent of Lore to talk to Yata directly. So here's my main issue. I'm sure Nala/Yata knew that it was Ovan in the Beast Temple. By sending the short mail to Haseo, he knew Haseo and Ovan would meet. Why did he do that? What was the reason for having the two run into one another here specifically? Especially considering what Ovan said. All this seems to have done is put pressure on Yata and sow doubt within his ranks. You gotta remember, Nala is right here listening to this and can't say anything because he's undercover. Did he truly not know it was Ovan in there? Did he not know Ovan would try to manipulate the members of GU like this? The two had been old friends in the past. They seem to know how one another thinks and operates. Does Ovan know Nala's identity and he's just messing with Yata while he can't say anything back? Who knows? There's no real answer to that, and we just have to infer. But Yata did lie to the group. Well, it was a lie of omission, but a lie nonetheless. What reasons did he have for that? Yata claims he was keeping quiet until he had proof, as there was no reason to tell them while it was just a theory. That's not a real reason why, unfortunately. He just decided to withhold that information. Haseo and the group aren't just normal players. There's no reason to keep this kind of stuff from them. That's not a flaw in the story to critique necessarily, but more a character flaw of Yatta, of who he is as a human being. Yatta chooses to be secretive. He has a hard time telling anyone anything and keeps most information to himself unless he deems it necessary based on his own criteria. Something the others find incredibly frustrating, and I don't blame them. He's a flawed individual, and we don't get to explore that as much with other characters aside from Haseo and Adeli specifically, so it's really nice to see this confronted more as the story moves forward. Despite keeping this information hidden, once confronted, Yatta not only is ready to infiltrate the operation folder, but conveniently knows a way to do it. Using Tri-Edge's signs, the group will port their characters into the folder. Yatta created a transfer program that will allow members of GU to make use of these holes in the system to breach areas they typically couldn't. Thus, he was hiding this plan/idea until he knew he could make the program that would allow them to do this. You gotta remember, Yatta was 10 years old during the events of IMOQ and is only 17 now. Him and Haseo are around the same age. There's no surprise there's a difficulty with communication and maturity with Yatta that we see more openly with Haseo since he is the main character. Even Pai seems to have issues defending why Yatta is doing what he is, and this struggle against her devotion for the man shows a bit more development for her character as well, even if it doesn't go very far in this volume. To utilize a sign, the team needs to use data seeds that can be collected from AIDA. If you played IMOQ or watched my videos before, this is similar to gate hacking with virus cores. Luckily, the designers of the game seem to realize how awful the virus core grind was, at least, in this volume. Volume 3 is a little bit different, unfortunately. Instead, they tied data seeds to AIDA battles that are required and limited to the story. Multiple times within the story, we will reach a sign and realize we do not have the data seeds for it, forcing us to go find the dungeon housing AIDA and defeat whatever is in there to get what is required. It's still boring, but it isn't random and is nowhere near as time consuming as it was when we played through IMOQ. Using the data seeds, the team is able to use the sign and hidden forbidden bulwark to enter the operation folder, and Haseo has to fight another AIDA known as Gatekeeper here. Once defeated, Haseo gets a data item known as OVON01, but keeps it from the group. Pai runs a program that allows her to transfer all the character data from the mirror server back to the main one. This causes a lot of players to briefly panic as they have no idea what is happening or why, but it's for the best and gets the job done. Everyone gets transferred, but Haseo runs into another AIDA. Luckily, instead of having to fight it, the data anomaly gets destroyed by two enigmatic individuals. These are Azure Orca and Baomeng, who, similar to Azure Kite, look like characters from IMOQ. Haseo is confused since they attacked AIDA, and he always assumed that Kite was both Tri-Edge, AIDA, and the reason for Shino being in a coma. The whole reason for his motivation to do what he does throughout GU. If these Azure Knights are defeating AIDA, what does that mean about Azure Kite? Additionally, the Knights seem to be lugging around a giant coffin that has Kite within it, repairing his data after his battle with Haseo. Haseo loses vision as his character data is transferred back to the main server, and we finally have the ability to escape from the world and check out the desktop. All in all, this is probably the better opening segment between the two volumes. GU started off notoriously slow with little development happening until the latter half of the game, where it comes at you all at once. In Volume 2, we are immediately thrown into the thick of it, and this allows us to feel like the momentum isn't going to stop anytime soon. We're in for a crazy ride, and there's no getting off. Still, we are finally out, and it's a good time to reacquaint ourselves with the functionality of our desktop.
There were two others besides Tri-Edge there. I'd like to know who on earth they were. They were attacking AIDA. Does that mean that Tri-Edge isn't AIDA? And also, Adeli.
To be perfectly honest, there's not much to go over with the desktop itself. Nothing has really changed, and you have the functionality of everything you had before in the previous volume. Like before, you can save here instead of logging in to save within the world, and you can access your email, community forums, official forums, and the news. You also have access to customization for your wallpaper and background music that plays while browsing. These are the exact same from Volume 1, but will continue to update with new content in Volume 2 onward. There will be new wallpapers to unlock, new music to earn, and we'll also have access to CrimsonVS finally, which has been teasing us throughout the entirety of Volume 1 as it was on the desktop but the service was temporarily shut down. One of the best parts about .hack is that, while it is a pseudo-MMO experience, something you may have seen in other games like Sword Art Online, They lean heavily in helping you experience what it is like to leave the game and check your real life in between the storyline. Keeping up with the forums and news is a great way to feel like you are the player of Haseo's PC, and actually leaving the game to do your more real-life oriented tasks. The community forums are incredibly in-depth in terms of providing additional context and realism to the idea that you are a player accessing an MMO. Some of these conversations feel like they could be legitimate YouTube comments, for example. On top of typical conversations about the various goings-on in the world and the world, you'll also get new area words, new quests to unlock, and there's an entire tutorial for CrimsonVS disguised as a conversation between individuals who play it. It's a really great way of integrating information into the game in a way that feels both natural and fun, as browsing forums used to be really cool before the infinite scroll sites of doom hit us and ruined everything. These forums really come off as something so natural and almost exactly what I would have experienced back then. Additionally, the return of Opkalu is back and includes various fan art that you can download as wallpapers. I don't think I mentioned this in the first video, but all of Opkalu content comes from CyberConnect 2's official website, where they had their own Opkalu page during development. Fans could post fan art with the idea that it could potentially show up within the game itself, and the surname of the artist would be attached as well to give credit. Most, but not all, of the art found in Opkalu within the released product is fan art. We know this thanks to CyberConnect 2's own YouTube page, where they answer questions frequently. I'll leave a link in the source page, which you can find in the description. As with previous entries in .hack, you will also have access to emails that you will receive periodically. These emails are generally from the other players you interact with and often provide directions for the story, whether that be for unlocking side quests, new areas to explore, or just telling Haseo to meet somewhere typical for a cutscene and story beat. In the previous games, including Rebirth, you would often get emails you could respond to with multiple options. Using the proper option would raise the affection of the player you were talking to, and something similar can be done on some community forum posts for affection or to unlock new areas for side quests. Only now am I realizing that, despite them being prevalent all the way up until now, I do not believe there is a single email that you respond to in Reminisce, effectively removing the concept completely aside from it being used maybe a few times in the community forums. Very odd removal that almost slipped under my radar considering it has been such a staple up to this point, even in the previous games. Many of the emails you receive will come from some form of administration with CC Corp as well. For example, Yuichi Yamada, the real-life producer for .hack, will email you about your conversion bonuses when you transfer your data from Rebirth to Reminisce. The other major appeal of .hack, although some may not think of it as such, is this data transfer concept. Throughout these games, you are able to keep all of your progress throughout all of the volumes and earn bonuses for doing so. All of your wallpapers, forum posts, etc. are all still there, and you can unlock new ones now. Completing tasks like defeating Doppelganger in Volume 1, and then transferring that data over to Volume 2 and beating Doppelganger again, can offer some of the best equipment in the game. Sure, you can play one game without data from another, but the appeal is seeing that progress carried over, and I personally love that. I love not only feeling overpowered at the start thanks to getting myself ready for Volume 2, but knowing there are extra surprises for me as someone that brought that data over. I mentioned previously, but the original games came with one part of a 4-part OVA per volume. It was called .hack Liminality and focused on individuals in the real world during the events that were transpiring within the game. We lost that in GU, and they try to make up for it by having various news articles that are sometimes accompanied by a short synopsis video or advertisement. Hilariously, you can really hear when they reuse some of the voice actors, as most of the ads are done by the voice actor for Syllabus, I'm pretty sure, and the voice of Michiru in the online Jack segments are clearly Adelie. I imagine this may confuse some players who don't know better, but no, Michiru isn't Adelie, of course, and I think Syllabus is just a college student. Speaking of online Jack, we unlock our first of 3 new episodes here. If you didn't watch or don't remember the last video, Online Jack is GU's version of a companion piece OVA, although much shorter overall. To make up for this, they throw in those news captures on your desktop, but the allure of the Liminality OVAs is nowhere to be found. Still, Online Jack has its own charm, I guess, and does the same job of connecting the real world to the world R2 during the events of the game. With Online Jack, we follow Salvador Aihara as he investigates a condition known as Dol Syndrome. Similar to the Lost Ones who go comatose, Dol Syndrome has been affecting individuals who were known to play the world. However, the children experiencing this all seem to come from the same classroom. The kids do still seem to function somewhat rather than being bedridden, but they're messed up, trust me, they're messed up. They're really messed up actually, as you'll see. In the previous episode, Salvador met the homeroom teacher for the class, Michiru Tajima, as well as Associate Professor Taichiro Sugai, who is researching the connection between Dol Syndrome and online games. One of the students they went to talk to ended up needing to be hospitalized, and the child then disappeared from his room in the hospital, leaving a message written in blood that we now know are the names of the 8 phases, or epitaphs. Osamu, the boy who was hospitalized, also uttered the name Sakaki before being taken away, while his screen flashes AIDA over and over, allowing the player to make the connection that something is afoot with that conniving creep of a Moontree council member. In this 4th installment in the series, Salvador and Michiru are finally able to visit Sugai's apartment, where they can ask about the writing on the wall. What does SKEEEEEEEEEEITH, Innis, Magus, etc. mean? And what hints do those names hold in helping find the missing children? Sugai has to be one of the most well-versed adults in terms of MMO culture and history I have ever seen for that time period, for a man that doesn't seem to regularly play them. This may be due to the universe in which the games take place, making games like the world cultural phenomenon with a large and devastating history, but I was still impressed nonetheless. Sugai teaches Salvador and Michiru not only about the epitaph of the Twilight, the basis for the world, but also the 8 waves or cursed wave as we know it, including the phases of Morgana, Skaith, Innis, etc. Sugai points out that the word AIDA is unknown and even did his research into the name Sakaki, pointing out that there were 6 boys who all played within the same guild, that being Moontree, which Salvador recognizes as an avid player. This allows them to make the connection that Sakaki of Moontree seems to be responsible for whatever is going on. Sugai believes everything is connected to the events from 7 years ago during IMOQ, and is sure that the world has the ability to affect the minds of its players, even putting them into comas. He's right on the money, and this is what he's been researching for some time. If you pay attention to the video, Sugai shows them monitoring some of the Doll syndrome patients. One is Osamu, but the other is Toru Uike. When the camera pans onto Toru, the electronics seem to malfunction within the hospital. While watching, we can see Toru briefly smile. It's like a little flash of a smile. After watching the footage, Michiru receives an email and is shocked at whatever it is she's reading. So shocked, she runs out of the apartment despite Salvador's cries for her to wait, ending the episode. The middle entry in the series, Reminisce ramps things up in both the game and storyline within the world, but also outside of it, and starts to better show us how these connections matter and foreshadow what they mean for the future. We as the player know at this point that Sakaki is up to something, but Haseo, Adeli, and the majority of other major characters do not. Learning Sakaki's relationship to AIDA, having the information sort of drip fed to us as a mystery throughout the story, leading to a big reveal later, and watching her character go about it none the wiser, is a big appeal in feeling like you are solving a mystery, a game within the game. The newest major addition to your desktop is CrimsonVS, which you can actually log into now. In Rebirth, we always had the icon on our desktop, but the service was shut down. Now the service is back and apparently reworked to the point everyone has lost their progress and cards. Something I imagine people would be rightfully furious about. I'd still be pretty pissed to lose all of my progress in a service because they decided to update it instead of making something new. There's not a lot of logic behind it though, or rather you're not supposed to think too hard on it. After all, this is a card game where the generals and units look like main characters from IMOQ and GU. They have a kite card, a black rose card, Baomong, Haseo, even Shino. It's more just a mechanic to be fun for the actual player, for you, while showcasing various pieces of art that involve the characters of .hack, rather than being based solely on the world. Maybe it takes you out of the immersion of being in this simulation, but at the same time, it's a fun, optional, and basically AFK time sink that acts as something new to do and check out whenever you revisit your desktop. Just helps with the game loop essentially without needing to be taken seriously. But what is CrimsonVS exactly? It's a collectible card game completely online and automated. All you need to do is collect cards through playing, and by playing I mean setting up a deck and then letting it play itself. It's entirely automated. And while that may be disappointing to you card game sickos out there, like me, I love card games, it still offers at least enough strategy for you to think about it a little bit and then forget it's there. CrimsonVS is a game of archetypes. You have Snipe, Assault, and Shield, and these act as rock, paper, scissors elements, with Snipe defeating Assault, Assault defeating Shield, and Shield defeating Snipe. Within the game you have 2 major card types, Generals and Units, and a deck is made up of exactly 1 General and 3 Units, with repeat units being allowed. So you could have multiple Shino units in your deck that do the exact same thing because they are the exact same card. General cards are a single individual, such as a version of Haseo or Gaspard, etc. They have an AP value that acts as their attack, and an HP value that acts as their total health. Above that, you can see their charisma value as well as their archetype. Charisma comes into play when selecting your units. This is because units have the following: a charisma cost, an archetype, and a junction ability or card effect. It's just a card effect. A player cannot play units whose total charisma cost is greater than the charisma of their general. So collecting new generals with higher charisma can lead to making more powerful decks, usually at the cost of what their AP and HP values are. That being said, the best generals are almost always the ones with higher charisma values. The general's main role per turn is to attack the enemy general. Each general takes turns doing so, and whoever loses all their HP first loses the entire match. Fully automated. Easy enough, right? The complexity comes with the inclusion of the archetypes in units. Each unit has a junction ability. Some abilities happen only once at the start of battle, some others happen every turn, and some have more nuanced criteria. The Trinity occurred with the First Strike junction for the Assault archetype, forces your general to go first unless both parties play a card with the same effect. Some other cards deal extra damage, protect against damage, offer additional health, and even disable enemy junctions, and each archetype generally favors some junctions over others. Shield archetype unit cards tend to heal and protect more than others as an example. Archetypes come into play more as the battle is set up as well. Before being placed on the field for battle, the first unit card in your deck is compared to that of your opponent's. Whoever has the higher charisma cost wins and gets to be placed on the field, while the other card is destroyed and removed from play entirely. If the card beats the archetype it is compared to, it adds 1 to its charisma cost value, helping trump ties. If after all of this there is still a tie, both cards get destroyed. Now maybe I missed this because I don't remember seeing it in the tutorial, but I believe who gets to go first in the match is based on archetypes as well. And some units take this into account, either forcing you to go first or having effects based on if you are first or if you are second. Assuming the generals have the same archetype, I'd imagine charisma decides, and after that maybe a coin toss, like a 50-50. Once battle starts, whoever's turn it is will activate their junctions and attack. If the opposing player has reactive junctions like evading an attack, these will activate as well. Following the initial turn, the next player's deck will start and repeat the process, activating whatever junctions they have and then attacking. This then repeats over and over until someone loses, and yes, you can mix and match archetypes regardless of general. You can emulate these battles to see them firsthand, or watch up to the last 20 battles in the battle log. But you won't be doing this very often. In reality, you'll check the log briefly to see trends, and then go from there. By seeing what archetypes are popular, you can make a deck to counter these trends and secure more wins. As you gain large amounts of wins, you'll rank up, starting at 500 and working your way up to rank 1. As games get played and you check your results, you'll be awarded packs, with newer packs becoming available at higher ranks that have better chances at getting rarer cards. Or maybe cards that just weren't available at all in the previous ones. Filling up your collection will fill out a chart in the gallery section, and by making a horizontal line of cards, you'll be awarded a bonus card. Although this was usually pretty lackluster, as it seems it can just be a common card you've earned before most times. Probably the least rewarding aspect of trying to complete your collection. But I still did it because, like I said, I'm a card game sicko, I'm a freak. After hitting rank 1, you can take part in an exhibition match against Gaspard, who turns out to be the reigning champion. I think we learned about this all the way back in Rebirth, so it's cool to finally be able to challenge him and get a unique Haseo general for coming out victorious. As an avid trading card game fan, someone who has played Magic, Pokemon, Digimon, and now Riftbound potentially, I was really disappointed to be reminded that you don't actually play the game, but rather leave it running while you do other things. Despite that, it still scratched the itch I look for regardless, and still provided a deck building experience that requires a little bit of knowledge and strategy surrounding the game's mechanics. It's a nice, non-intrusive addition and has some new art for you to look at. You can even earn 3 specific cards by using a specific area word in the world that you unlock later. By the time I was finished the game, I wasn't even rank 1 yet, so I had to leave it running here and there, but it's probably possible to fight Gaspard before I did if you really keep an eye on things and get lucky with some of the cards you obtain, as they are random when coming from packs. Overall, a great addition and one I ask for in pretty much every RPG I play. It's trading card games or an arena of some sort, and .hack.gu has both. It's no wonder this is one of my favorite series despite any critiques I have, like its battle system.
The time we spent in the AIDA server was only a few minutes in the real world.
Back to the main storyline, one of the first things we can check out is the official forums and community forums to see people trying to explain what had happened to them when they were stuck in the game, but no one seems to believe it. This is because, despite it feeling like so long in-game, in the real world barely any time had passed. There's even an official forum thread talking about it with so many deleted posts you'd think a Reddit mod got his hands on it. In an email, Adelie informs Haseo that her voice is working again in the game, but she can't feel anything in the tip of her hand, a side effect of her character data degrading. So she's not out of the woods yet. Despite this, she bought a controller she can use with one hand, and it's probably the one we see Professor Sugai using in the Online Jack episode, so that's a really nice touch there. I like that. Despite being scared, Adelie realizes that this isn't anything a doctor can heal, and so she wants to push forward in finding a solution with the other chosen ones. It's a nice change of pace for her, considering how timid she is. I mean, she's still timid, don't get me wrong, but she's growing more confident ever so slightly, just a little bit. Haseo, meanwhile, seems to voice a lot more care about Adelie's predicament, both vocally and internally, showing his growth as an individual as he looks to accept the presence and help of his friends, and accept that he too cares about them in a way they care about him. Still, he has a hard time showing this affection outright, and acts rather coldly towards Adelie, which disappoints her. We're not there yet with Haseo, but he's growing up. He's growing up. We head to the Serpent of Lore to watch Kun confront Yatta over everything that happened in the AIDA server, and what they are going to do about it now. Since the time spent on the server was only a few minutes in the real world, it's almost impossible to convince anyone that what they are saying is true. Yatta is choosing to act as if nothing happened, but why? Kun wants an answer as well, because he feels like everything is too dangerous to let people continue playing like normal. Kun wants to warn everyone and wants the game shut down to protect civilians, but Yatta doesn't want to raise a panic and wants to keep researching, yada. Haseo chimes in as well, complaining about how Yatta is a coward who just wants to treat everyone like his guinea pigs, based on what Ovan had informed them of previously. Again, Yatta doesn't really say anything about this, but he could, and I don't know why he doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense for him not to, you could call it a character flaw, someone too proud to explain themselves, but man, is he annoying. What Kun is saying makes sense at face value, and I don't know if it's because he's proud or immature, but Yatta just outright refuses to help calm Kun's anger and worry despite having a good reason for not shutting anything down. The server won't be shut down, and Haseo also doesn't want that because he needs his avatar to save Shino and the other lost ones. Since Yatta doesn't have anything he wants to say to Kun, and no one seems to be willing to act by shutting down the server, Kun gets frustrated and quits GU outright, leaving to fight AIDA on his own. Afterward, Haseo is asked if he found anything in the operation folder, referring to that Ovan01 file from earlier. Not trusting Yatta but still needing to work with him, Haseo lies and keeps it to himself for now. Once Haseo is gone, Yatta explains that AIDA is interested in humanity. If they shut down the world where AIDA can observe countless humans, there's a very real chance they would breach containment and spread throughout the net, putting more people in danger. That's a pretty valid reason, and so why didn't he just explain that to Kun? Because he's an asshole. He's a 17-year-old kid, and he has an obsession with the world and a power complex, and needs to be brought down a peg, honestly. All of this seems to make it difficult for Yatta to communicate with anyone when pressed. Only Pai gets anything out of him when they are alone and she's talking to him with the utmost respect. Respect he isn't willing to give to anyone else, mind you. Afterward, Yatta meets with a system admin who uses the most mysterious, enigmatic player character you're ever gonna see. These guys take themselves so seriously, man. He even uses a voice changer to have like an unnaturally deep voice despite being a systems admin. Like, listen to this.
Oh, that is all well and good, but some of our superiors have concerns about your method of operation.
Gaspard was one of the individuals in the AIDA server, and Haseo, not wanting to give away anything, legit gaslights him by telling him he's misremembering despite having been there with him and talking to him within the guild. It's not like a canon event that they talk to each other, but you can interact with him. Syllabus is none the wiser since he wasn't online at the time, but I just found this scene really funny. He just outright refuses to tell these two what is going on despite everyone slowly figuring things out. Well, I guess it's just the Moon Trade Council. and Ovan, but still. Ovan invites Haseo to Hallgrand's cathedral to talk, but Haseo has very little patience for him at this point, both due to him disappearing on their old guild for so long, and also because he's clearly hiding things. He explains as mysterious as ever that everything starts and ends with AIDA, and saving Shino and Adelie is tied to that. Epitaphs call AIDA, and AIDA call epitaphs. Ovan explains that, for Haseo to find the entire truth, he will need to collect all of the epitaph users. How does he know that? We have no idea. But clearly Ovan has his own plans and goals he wishes to see come to fruition, and Haseo doesn't have a choice but to heed his words as he'll take whatever he can get to save Shino. Blindly so. You can tell Ovan is trying to manipulate Haseo, feigning emotional pain when Haseo grills him, calling Haseo a brother to him, etc. He's a manipulator, and Haseo seems to be stuck between two of them in Ovan and Yatta, at least for now. Back on the desktop, Syllabus sends an email to Haseo telling him to check out the rewards for being the Demon Palace Emperor, namely that their guild hall is getting moved from Mak Anu to a bigger hall in the new root town called Dol Dona. Root towns are the hubs of the world. Mak Anu is on the Delta server and is designed for players from levels 1 to 50, allowing you to enter fields and dungeons within that range at a chaos gate. Dol Dona is on Theta and will be where we access level 51 to 100 content. As a root town, Dol Dona is much smaller than Mak Anu and more akin to what we get with Lumina Cloth. However, Lumina Cloth is specifically for the arena and doesn't have fields or dungeons to explore. You'd expect that, for a more grand hub area, one for leveling 50 levels higher than the last one, that it would be a bit more developed. Instead, we get an initial area similar to Mak Anu with a basic item shop and a save station. Further, we get a small market that has new guild shops randomly appearing as we log in and out to sell some unique equipment for our item collection. Finally, we also have access to our new guild hall. It's not much, and one of the enjoyable aspects of IMOQ was checking out the new hub areas as you progressed. Certain things feel smaller in GU, and the reason may be because they were focusing on other aspects of the game instead, such as battles and a more cinematic storyline. But if the cost is the rest of the content, I don't know, it doesn't feel all that enticing here. It's not just the town either, we also lost the email exchanges in Volume 2 for whatever reason, and multiple plot points get dropped as well, like Gabby for example. Despite that, there are plenty of new additions that you may consider to make up for the loss of others, such as what we can do at the new guild hall or at home, again as they call it in the game. Haseo is the guild leader of Canard after events from the previous entry. While this has mostly minor plot relevance, it gives us a lot to do within the game itself. First and foremost, we can finally alchemize equipment other than our weapons. Within GU, you can alchemize equipment. This means taking two pieces of the same tier and type of weapon and fusing them together to give you a +1 version with higher stats. This can be repeated, taking the +1 version and another base version to give you up to +5. Then, the +5 piece can be used on a higher tier if you want, or you can again use items of the same tier and fuse those together. This was strictly for weapons in Volume 1, and has now been expanded to armor and accessories, meaning higher defensive values for your equipment as well. Most equipment in GU can be customized in some way. By placing items in the augmentation slots, you can add extra effects, such as higher experience or run speed on accessories. These augments take up 1 to 3 slots depending on what they are, so you can either mix and match weaker abilities or put a single, particularly strong effect on instead. When alchemizing equipment, the base item will always retain the customization it had previously, while the lost item will remove these customized items for use later if you want. .hack GU is an easy game as it is. It's very simple to level up in this game and doesn't take much time. Levels are king, and even one extra advancement can be enough for you to overpower an enemy that was giving you trouble. So in that sense, alchemizing and caring about your equipment isn't as crucial as say IMOQ, where I found you have to really make sure you were ready for some boss fights. You know, with the right gear and applying the right buffs, etc. All that functionality still exists in GU, it's just nowhere near as required as it was before, removing a layer of depth that helped make the simplistic battle system more interesting. In reality, alchemizing your gear is more of a bonus, and I wouldn't say it's necessary at all, especially within Last Recode unless you want any achievements tied into it. However, I still went on to do it because it's an RPG and I like to see those numbers go up. The real fix for this is to make monsters hit harder while being less dependent on level, and also requiring different aspects to defeating them in battle rather than which weapon you are using, you know, proper buffs, proper preparation. Leveling up is nice and I enjoy that aspect to an extent, but in some games leveling up is only half the battle. If you just need to mindlessly grind your way to success, it's not very rewarding when you stomp on everything later. That's why many RPGs add other necessary aspects to the equation. Leveling up in Final Fantasy X doesn't matter on its own, you still need to maneuver around the sphere grid to create the build you want that can utilize the levels you earned, and equipment can be crucial in many situations. Equipment in GU can be customized to nullify the effects of certain statuses like paralysis or sleep, but there is never any real incentive to do this. Nala even gives you a piece to do this for free during one of the fights in the arena where it kind of actually finally matters. On the other side of the guild hall is a garage for working on your steam bike. Steam bikes are awarded to a guild leader specifically, apparently, and allow you to traverse through towns and fields quicker than normal. Now you can buy new parts for the bike or earn unique parts by taking part in a time trial style minigame I'll bring up later. They mention you can buy parts in Makanu, where you can't actually access your garage, but fail to mention the junk shop right beside the guild hall that also has parts for purchase. It felt really odd to leave that out and also direct me to a server where this functionality isn't accessible, and I imagine that is some form of oversight based on whether or not the guild was supposed to stay in Makanu during development. The main point of upgrading your bike is to raise several stats associated with it. You can raise the max speed and acceleration, which is self-explanatory, but also raise balance as well, which affects the loss of speed when impacting walls. MPG is more relevant to the bike time trial, as it affects boost speed that you only get while in said trials. Finally, grip affects how well the bike can turn corners. Almost all of these, aside from MPG, are useful when on the field and seem to have no effect within the town. Many of these new parts come with added effects as well, such as being near invisible when approaching monsters on a map or increasing drop rates. Little things, but they make the experience more enjoyable overall and help speed up a very slow game. It's so nice to have something more to do with the bike within the game, as it was effectively only used for getting around a wee bit faster, and that was overshadowed in town due to the ability to fast travel to various parts using portals in each district. Now it feels like there is more purpose. Not only does the bike move faster and handle better, it can have various abilities to help you on the field as well. Most importantly though, at least for me, bike parts became a recorded statistic in the Book of 1000. If you're unaware, the Book of 1000 was a feature Kite had access to in .hack IMOQ, and was connected to the lore surrounding him and his bracelet. In GU, it has been incorporated by the devs into guilds, so everyone has access to their own. Completing categories within the book not only unlocks various wallpapers and background music for your desktop, but it also helps improve the guild. I won't go into full details since I talked about it in depth already during Rebirth, but you have 8 categories to work on. They are called Ryu books, and each has different criteria for ranking up. Book 1 is all about battles, Book 2 is about trading and gifting players, and some books are about seeing every monster or collecting every item, etc. It works as both a goal for how you play, but also a checklist to help you 100%. That being said, you don't actually need to 100% anything to rank up each book, at least in Rebirth and Reminisce. Whenever every book hits a new rank, in effect hitting rank 2 across the board, your guild ranks up and you can pay the in-game currency to unlock some form of bonus. Things like a larger guild storage or being able to sell more items at once in your guild shop. Some expansions are better than others, but they always act as a means of making your life easier, like accessing the guild storage while in a field or dungeon as an example. In Volume 1 you start at rank 1 and can hit ranks 2 and 3. In Volume 2 you can get up to 6. Rank 4 unlocks teleportation between visited platforms in a field. Rank 5 upgrades your shop to use 10 slots instead of 7. Finally, Rank 6 upgrades your storage to 75 items from 60 and allows you to perform alchemy at platforms in a dungeon. But what does this have to do with the steam bike? Well, Book 8 records both your drive time and the amount of times you've crashed into enemies, so the easiest way to upgrade it in Volume 1 is to use the bike all the time and drive around aimlessly if you have time to kill. In Volume 2, the collection of all unique bike parts has been added as well. Just by earning or buying every part, I found this quickly ranked up to 6 without me having to worry about how much time I was on the bike itself. Don't get me wrong, I like grinding in MMOs, but generally I like a more active grind with more of a purpose. Driving your bike for over an hour without a care in the world is awfully boring to me, and I find a lot of the grinds in GU as a whole are similarly lackluster, not requiring much thought and instead having you repeat the same tasks over and over with mediocre rewards. I'm not going to get into Mecha Grunty again since he's the same as last time, but just collecting chims and feeding him over and over again for some subpar armor is not what I would call an engaging experience by any means. So removing these aspects from the game that were sort of required to finish the book and upgrade your guild is a great boon to the player, and everything feels like it moves much faster because of that. Similarly, the requirements for ranking up in terms of monsters and item collection feel more lenient as well within this second entry. After unlocking our new guild hall, Syllabus and Gaspard invite Haseo on a quest. There are several quests in the game that you can pick up as they unlock during the storyline. Most are required for story progression, and others are for unlocking the optional side quests you'll be completing throughout the volume. Sometimes these two concepts overlap, but not every quest is mandatory. You don't have to complete the bounty hunting quest or unlock bounty hunting in general if you don't want to, and you should probably hold off on that for as long as possible anyway, as I'll explain in a minute. Most quests are simplistic in nature, just a means of unlocking the ability to do Bickman's Flyers again, Mecha Grunty again, Chim Hunting again, etc. Basically, if you've completed all of that side content in the previous volume, you're going to feel real exhausted learning you have to do it all over again in Volume 2. In fact, I recommend not going out of your way at all for these. Chim Spheres will sort of complete themselves over time, and same with Mecha Grunty. You could even just talk to people you run into casually to help out with the flyers, and kick lucky animals whenever you see them. It's best to just take these as they are presented to you, because trying to fully complete them is both tedious and unrewarding. Chances are, by the time you fully complete one of these side quests, whatever reward they offer will be outdated. I could only see it helping boost your Book of 1000 as a reason for completing some of these, and it isn't in any way required, and I really do recommend not focusing on it unless you really care about it. Still, I'll go through the repeated side quests a little bit here. For more details, check out my previous video. Again, lucky animal hunting just means hitting one of each lucky animal and hitting a total amount of them a certain amount of times. The type of unique lucky animal you run into is based on your party's average level and the type of map you're on. Not super convoluted, and I did go over it before. Mecha Grunty is all about finding that bullshit robot and feeding him an increasing amount of Chim Spheres each time. It increases by 1 per interaction and gets progressively more annoying. Chims are a type of creature you can kick for spheres. They provide power sources for unlocking various doors and warp points in fields and dungeons. The main chims you run into are small blue ones worth 1 sphere, and then slightly larger ones worth more. More rarely, you will run into King Chim-Chims for a huge allotment of spheres and Assassin Chims that try to steal from you. There's specifically one new, unique Assassin Chim that you only see once during the quest to unlock this side campaign for Volume 2. Collecting enough spheres is the challenge of the Chim side campaign. Bickman's Flyer quest wants you to find and interact with all 160 unique NPCs in the game that run around the various towns, fields, and dungeons. It's probably the most tedious one in the game, but Volume 2 looks to make it a bit easier by providing a radar you can activate to tell you if there's anyone you haven't interacted with in the immediate area. For that reason, you're probably better off waiting to complete most of these in Volume 2 or 3, at least once for various achievements in Last Recode. To unlock bike missions, you need to complete a quest that has you fight against 5 Golden Goblins. These are a reference to the Golden Goblin trials found in IMOQ, but only appear once in Reminisce. After clearing out the goblins with your bike, you will unlock a new area word, Passing, and the mission on the field screen will show bike mission with a course number as the description. Just choose Passing and any second word, and then cycle through the third words to see what mission you get. There's 5 in total. Each course requires you to hit the 3 King Chim-Chims on the field within a set time to place on the leaderboards. Ranking first gets you the first place rewards and all subsequent rewards of top 10. You'll notice on the leaderboards that some individuals have Steam bikes that you wouldn't expect, like Matsu for example. Again, who gets to own a Steam bike is sort of inconsistent and you aren't meant to think about it much. But for some reason I haven't been able to get these questions out of my head. They did not care enough to make hard specific rules for this, and while I can't necessarily blame them, enough of these little holes start to pile up on top of one another and become more and more obvious and prevalent. While racing for the fastest time, you can hit a large assortment of chims here, which raises your boost bar so you can go faster. These chims don't count for the chim side quest, but the new bike quest NPC will keep track of them for you and reward you with stat boosting items over various checkpoints. He also wants you to complete at least 50 races and offers rewards for doing so, some being bike parts. So there's a lot of good rewards to be earned by constantly completing the races and being good at them. I think the 50 race grind isn't meant to feel as tedious as it is if you complete the races legitimately, through trying multiple times. Feels much worse if you've already gotten first place in everything, making for just another reason to try to do it the right way and not be a filthy cheater like I am. I really enjoy the inclusion of the bike trials because they harken back to both the Golden Goblin trials of IMOQ, as well as the grunty races you used to be able to take part in. Those ones were difficult and I had to actually complete them properly, I think. I think I had to complete them properly. Did those ones also have a glitch? Now, the bounty hunting mission, that could be the best side quest in the game, but they are so dangerous to start early. Within a field or dungeon, a battle zone is created whenever you attack an enemy. Sometimes you can find battle zones already active and enter them to help whoever is inside. Usually they need help with monsters, but sometimes they are being attacked by a small-time player killer. Bounties want you to defeat 50 PKs total, but also have a list of chaotic PKs that will sometimes appear in here. You get additional rewards for clearing a chaotic PK, and more for clearing all of them. The issue is that these PKs can be way higher level than you unless you've already hit the cap, and it doesn't matter what the level of the field or dungeon is. While this helps simulate the concept of players targeting weaker individuals, which I like, dying in the MMO leads to a game over even in situations where it doesn't make sense. If it was the AIDA server, I would understand it, but even in regular zones, you will need to start from your last save if you lose to another player or even a monster. And with no autosaves, you need to be really careful if bounties are active because I swear to God, I lost an hour of progress twice. That's on me, technically, and I imagine the reason you get a game over is because Haseo is meant to be an undefeated PKK and the protagonist of the story. So having him lose doesn't fit the narrative that is expressed online, but that's really frustrating sometimes. Sure, you can save after every dungeon, but it's tedious to do so. An autosave feature could have been a godsend here. Instead, you basically have to ignore every battle zone until you are max level, or risk running into a chaotic PK who will absolutely wreck your shit, hence why you might not want to start this quest so early. That's all well and good, I suppose. Again, I feel like it's on me in this situation, but there are ways to make it less punishing considering the game is so easy that you will often never feel the need to save so often until you get destroyed randomly without any warning. If you could at least escape from PKs using the smokescreen item, that'd be one thing, but the minute you are in a battle zone with someone stronger than you, you are screwed with a guaranteed game over. I think there's a retry feature in last recode at least, but some fights can be unwinnable if you are not prepared, so save often and be as prepared as possible. Usually that's something I like in a game, just as long as it isn't so punishing. Like, you have to prepare for a hunt in Monster Hunter, but you don't lose hours of progress for failing it, you know? You lose like half an hour of progress, depending. While we are on this topic, I would have really appreciated if invasions were a thing. We only ever invade another player's battle zone, we never get invaded ourselves. That would have been a great way to accentuate the experience of playing an online MMO where PvP is a danger whenever you are in a field or dungeon. Regardless, bounty hunting is still one of the more enjoyable side quest campaigns for me overall, even if it forces itself to feel repetitive near the end. I wish it had better rewards, as currency is incredibly easy to come by through selling items and equipment at shops, or your guild shop, but that sort of corrects itself in Redemption where one of your party members is tied to it. Finally, it's recommended to fight Doppelganger again in this volume. Doppelganger is a unique enemy that appears on fields after 5 minutes of playtime that seems to get reset with battles within the area, so you may want to clear it out first. I personally sped up the emulator I was playing on and just drove around for a while after clearing everything out. Doppelganger is scary due to it taking the look of Haseo's PC, with blank glowing eyes and a dark aura surrounding it. What's really terrifying is that it's always 8 levels ahead of you. Luckily, this caps out whatever the main cap of that specific volume is, so fighting him at level 100 is a piece of cake. However, you may want to do this earlier, as transferring data from Rebirth where you defeated Doppelganger before, and then clearing him again in Reminisce, will offer you some of the best weapons in the game, and carry you from that point until the end of the volume. I don't think any weapon ended up trumping them. 8 levels are brutal, and Doppelganger will almost certainly destroy you, and if not, heal through whatever you throw at it. Thanks to a guide online, I found a strategy I never knew about when I played this game initially as a kid, where you can abuse a certain lucky animal multiple times to lower the health of the enemy enough that you can then perform an awakening and finish him off. I was going to say I suggest doing this with the third form unlocked so that you get all of the unique weapons at once, but from what I understand, you still need to defeat the enemy twice regardless to get all the unique key items. But that's just what I keep seeing online. I never thought to try it later, and I couldn't really go back. So if somebody wants to like do it at the end and see if you get all the key items, I'm pretty sure you'll get all the unique weapons, but I don't know if you'll get all the key items. The first defeat for me got the dual swords and a broadsword, but also the Forgotten Shadow key item. Then later on, I did it again to get the scythe and the Moonlight Faith key item. The only thing worse than having to defeat Doppelganger once is having to defeat him a second time. So if you don't have to do that, someone please let me know. I really like Doppelganger as a concept. I love crusty ass, obtuse MMOs where there are actual mysteries and urban legends to find. In the modern day and age, we know everything about anything included in a game almost from the get-go, but the idea that there was a mysterious force people were scared to run into within their MMO sounds so enticing. It feels like you are exploring uncharted ground, and it's hard to get that in modern games. I'm playing EverQuest again in my free time, and it really helps convey that feeling of open discovery and fear of the unknown. I'm also playing my RuneScape League right now. It's taking over my life. RuneScape Demonic Pact League 6. It's my first league ever in RuneScape, and it's taken me over. All in all, I think the majority of campaigns are unrewarding time sinks designed to extend the life of the game. While they are sort of meant to be completed casually over time as you play, chances are you will not complete most of them without going out of your way to do so, which can take an absurdly long amount of time for how monotonous everything is. While there are new inclusions like bike trials, the fact that most of these campaigns just repeat themselves feels so lazy. Like it's just a means of making sure there's enough content in the volume to have it released on time. I can't stand it, and I didn't stand it because I chose not to complete many of the campaigns in this volume. If the rewards were at least worthwhile, maybe I would feel incentivized to do so, but even those are mediocre at best. Why would they think I would want to participate in these campaigns multiple times? Name me one player who thought, alright, I can't wait to do Bickman's Flyers again.
Alkaid, there's something that I want to ask you.
Haseo, come with me on an adventure!
Wait, you... What the...
Back to the story, Haseo will see Alkaid chasing after Sirius, who seems to be acting funny, talking about people trying to take it from him in an obsessive and paranoid way. There's clearly something wrong with him, and Alkaid, having a connection to Sirius, is trying to figure it out. She initially sees Haseo and blames him for this predicament, but later asks him to go on an adventure with her to a field. There, Alkaid confides in Haseo that Sirius never goes to Ikolo anymore, the guild for arena emperors. Someone so proud and so paranoid, Sirius's change seemed to occur when he entered the arena alongside Azure Balmung and Orca, or at least what looks to be them. Haseo theorizes that Sirius may be infected with AIDA. Alkaid has always considered Haseo to be a cheater, and he is, but she has learned that it was natural to lose in the arena due to forgetting about meaning, faith, and pride. Without her resolve to be stronger and do the best she can, it's no wonder that she was removed from her title. She's not even a party member yet, and Alkaid is experiencing more growth than we saw with Haseo in the entirety of Volume 1. Seeing Haseo as someone strong that she can respect a bit more, she asks for his help in the Holy Palace tournament so they can confront Sirius and figure out what has happened to him. Haseo agrees to enter, but to do so, he has to give up his Demon Palace Emperor title. Adelie agrees to join as well, but Haseo has to break the news to Syllabus. It's never really clear what the title of Emperor means. Generally, we see that the party leader is treated as the sole Emperor. Alkaid was the Emperor once for the Demon Palace, and later it was Endrance. Then everyone called Haseo the Emperor, but no one really seems to talk about how the other party members should receive the title as well. However, Haseo basically goes to tell Syllabus they need to drop the title, and Syllabus mentions having had his fill of being Emperor. So I guess all of the party members are considered as such, and the developers just chose to focus on the party leaders to simplify the storytelling aspect of the arena arc. Basically just more vibes-based storytelling where the rules for things are sort of obscure and made up when necessary to push the storyline along. In fact, this arena arc we are about to experience is the worst for this, and we'll see why later. Inconsistencies can be somewhat fine within a storyline, but I really found myself full of so many questions about things that just didn't make sense, and I think that's detrimental to the overall presentation that they let slide in development for the worse. Haseo gives up the Emperor title and registers his team with Adelie and Alkaid. Soon after, we go into the first tournament match, which is hilariously against the winners of the last Holy Palace tournament. If you win the tournament, you still have to challenge the Emperor for the title, hence why these previous winners are back for more. Remember, there's 3 tiers of tournament for each 50 levels within the game, although that's just for the sake of playability. You have Demon, Holy, and Sage, with Holy being for players level 51 to 100. Or that's probably the case, I guess. Technically, if he didn't give up his title, Haseo would have had to defend it in the next Demon tournament. But at the same time, he would have been leveling up from 50 to 100 for storyline reasons. So would his level have been scaled down to accommodate players in the 1 to 50 range? Or is this just more of this weird, inconsistent storytelling, and there aren't really any rules for us to think about? Regardless, Haseo has his first match against the team. In the previous game, the announcer would always have a guest alongside him, and his guest would change for each match. This was more for comedic effect, but I really enjoyed it. So I was especially disappointed to see that Antares just took up this spot for every fight moving forward here. It's an easy victory, and afterward we can see Sakaki talking to an AIDA-infected Bordeaux, who has now entered this tournament as well. We just can't escape her after the events of Rebirth. Clearly Sakaki is up to something, as we know from the online Jack episodes, and it has something to do with AIDA. Following this, we finally unlock the ability to participate in our next job extension. I have a detailed explanation of all the classes in the World R2 within the first video, but Haseo plays an adept rogue, which allows him to mix and match using a points-based system. During character creation, Haseo chose to start as a Twin Blade and then advance into Edge Punisher and Flick Reaper. In Rebirth, we completed a quest with the aid of Antares to unlock the ability to use broadswords, and now Syllabus and Gaspard are tagging along to help us unlock scythes. This will get Haseo partially back to where he was at the very start of Rebirth and the end of Roots, even if he didn't unlock these extensions the normal way back then. The task itself is just traversing a dungeon, but this is more a way for Syllabus and Gaspard to reminisce about when they met Haseo and retell some of those moments in case people never played the first game. This irritates Haseo, as it always does, and he eventually decides to go off on his own. You'd think Haseo has learned nothing from the first game, always trying to do everything himself and seeing everyone as a burden. And while that is still sort of true, he does at least become self-aware enough here and realize his mistake. Through flashbacks, we can see how Haseo's interactions with people like Adelie and even Alkaid have slowly broken down this defensive wall he has put up around himself. Haseo realizes that he has this tunnel vision due to both his attitude and the trauma of what happened to Shino. He forgets what is important, the whole reason he is even doing any of this. His friends are what he cares about, and by losing one, he thought to cut off anyone around him. He has slowly learned that he needs those friends to help carry the load, something they are always begging him to let them do. Haseo realizes he needs his friends and goes back to grab Syllabus and Gaspard. Good thing too, as Syllabus points out that the test of this job extension quest is to use the power of friendship. What is power without those to protect and ally alongside you? It's one of the major lessons Haseo learns on this journey through the world. Haseo unlocks his third and final form, technically, and with it a few new things have been unlocked as well. For one, Haseo can use scythes in battle now, but more importantly, the multi-trigger system is finally unlocked, so let's take a dive into what has changed for battles in this volume. In the first game, you could only reach a level cap of 50 before being cut off. Now we have the ability to go to 100, allowing us to grind even further. Leveling always takes 1000 EXP total, but you'll earn less and less as you fight enemies that are lower levels than you. In truth, leveling doesn't take that long, but it can feel rather tedious with how slow and boring I personally found the battle system to be. For example, a game that has the main character use multiple types of weapons doesn't allow you to switch between those weapons mid-battle for the entirety of the first volume. Add on to that GU is generally a slow-paced game, with animations and hits done feeling like they take 20 years, you'll begin to understand why I did most of my grinding with the emulator sped up where I could, and you're probably seeing that a lot throughout this video. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. It's a slow game, man. It'd be one thing if the weapons provided any real variety, but that is unfortunately few and far between. Combos are simplistic in nature, with dual swords being about mashing the X button over and over, and broadswords having you attack, charge, smash, repeat. Scythes are pretty similar to broadswords in that you attack twice before performing a charged attack, so it doesn't feel very different. The main benefit of the scythe is the AoE capability, but the broadsword does that just fine in my opinion, so this weapon feels kind of like dumb. It just feels dumb. The game's battle system is flashier than IMOQ, sure, but I believe IMOQ had more depth to it due to all the preparation and buffs that almost felt required to succeed. Here you overpower almost everything and rarely need to worry about even looking at the screen. If you really want to add on some additional depth to the combat, there are attack canceling mechanics you can attempt to maximize DPS, but it's hardly necessary, and I'm not sure if they were intended. Still feels good at least. Skills and Rengekis make up for a lot of the more boring aspects of combat, and I went into better detail on those previously. The best part of skills is how they can have specific uses for specific enemies. Some enemies are armored and others are flying types, and certain skills are more effective against them, so there's a reason to diversify your triggers and make the most out of them. With the third job extension unlock, we receive the multi-trigger, which revamps how we use skills and weapons in the game. Instead of having a skill trigger loadout for each weapon, you now have one loadout and can set different weapons to your 4 skill trigger shortcuts. When in battle, using a skill of a different weapon has you switch to it immediately and continue attacking. What a godsend, what a boon. You'd think losing the specific skill loadouts would inhibit you, but this allows you to more effectively grind out new weapon skills and still have a skill for armored and flying enemies if you want. It's the best of all worlds and makes combat feel way better, without forcing you to lock into a specific weapon before entering your next battle. It's a mechanic so crucial to making the gameplay feel better that I thought I remembered it being in from the get-go, and was so disappointed to learn it wasn't. To further improve on weapons, dual swords have their combo extended, but keep the amount of button presses the same apparently. There's a whole email acting as patch notes for you to go over on the desktop. Broadsword also gains a new multi-level charged attack that you can move around while charging, so it doesn't feel as bad as it did in the first game. Base charge attacks that aren't part of a combo use up your skill gauge and require it to recharge before you're able to use the skill trigger or another charged attack again. Supposedly, you can sort of game the system and get a skill out right as you land the charged attack, according to anecdotal evidence online. I never tried this though. Despite these upgrades, I still find battles to be the slowest, most boring part of the game, and that never really improves for me. The only thing worse than normal battles are avatar battles in my mind, but at least those are a little more flashy. Alongside these changes to the weapons, you also unlock a new form of awakening. By performing certain skills and Rengekis, you fill up a morale gauge. This gauge allows you to use whatever awakening you have assigned between Beast, Demon, and the new Divine Awakening. Divine Awakening is a super attack that takes the form of a cutscene, meaning it's less effective than Beast Awakening, which powers up your party while freezing your enemies. It has 3 possible versions for Haseo based on the color combination of the sliding bar that appears on the screen. Landing it closer to the middle awards you more time for the later mechanic of the awakening, but the various combinations will change what ability you get. There's Sword Dance, Hellfire Quake, and Plasma Blade, with Plasma being the best as it requires both your party members to land in a red section or a combination of red and yellow. The later mechanic for Hellfire Quake and Plasma Blade specifically has you mash the X button for as long as you have bonus time earned, increasing the damage. The range of these colors and how much space they take up is tied to your party members' affinity towards Haseo, which can be raised in battle, through gifts, in emails, etc., although they did remove email replies in this volume. Due to this, you must have all party members alive to use the Awakening, but I personally never bother with it. Beast Awakening is more active and enjoyable in my eyes, and lets me skip a long cutscene in what is already a slow experience. Even as a fan of .hack, I have never really enjoyed the core aspect of the battles in GU. While GU improves in some ways, it loses depth in others, and I find that really disappointing, and often makes me fall off of a volume before picking it up again way later and finishing it. There's so many battles to be had in this game. It is crucial that the experience be a bit faster and include more depth to the process. We see some upgrades here in Volume 2, and while they're welcome, they hardly improve the experience enough to make me actively enjoy participating. Most combat takes place within fields and dungeons as one may expect. To access these areas, players use area words they unlock through various means, usually through ranking highly in areas of specific levels, but also through the forums and emails. The issue is that you start to get so many words, especially in Volume 2, that it can be hard to find the specific word you are looking for when going to normal areas of your own volition. Most of the gimmick words such as passing and competing, used for bike missions and collecting CrimsonVS cards, seem to generally be close enough to the start, but other words could be anywhere. In theory, this is fine. You probably don't have specific words you need, but instead have specific types of areas you want to get to. It's easy to mix and match until you get what you want. Specific combinations found within the game generally end up in the bookmark section, which does have like a sorting kind of to it, so at least that has it. Unfortunately, you do not have control over what ends up in here and cannot make your own bookmarks. So theoretically, the system is novel and works well enough for our experience throughout the storyline. But say you do want a specific combination for whatever reason, like getting an area where a bunch of side campaign content is close together, so you, like in the game, go to check online. Well, after your little Google search, you then need to go and sift through your huge list of area words that are not in alphabetical order and see if you can find it. Then, after wasting all that time, maybe you realize you don't have that word at all and then need to search for how to unlock it. This is quite the slog, especially when looking for multiple specific areas, and while that is a specific experience, one maybe not intended for the game, It still would have benefited greatly by allowing us to use the full features of the gate alongside some filters, letting us bookmark combinations we want instead of just putting them in the warp record, and letting us filter or order our words based on criteria like element type, level, alphabetical, etc. These options would have been a great boon to the player when essentially doing what Haseo is doing in the game, searching online for specific areas that are beneficial to us. Fields and dungeons themselves are more the same as they were in Volume 1. You have a new desert or savanna style area to explore with fields, and a sort of tower-like dungeon, which is my favorite from the pool so far. It's just a straight shot through an ever-circling dungeon with traps to run into, and even had these trap doors that work like trapped chests, and I don't think we've seen that before yet. It adds a bit of variety, but you will in majority feel like you are retreading ground over and over as dungeons and fields continue to look the same. If battling starts to feel like a chore, wait until you go through the same looking areas over and over to do it. It's excruciating, and I don't know if I just expected more, but a hard focus on newer dungeons and fields specifically on AIDA Server would have been a better direction in my eyes. Makanu could have had a specific pool of maps it would pull from, and Dol Dona could have had the same. It might at least help trekking through areas in Volume 2 feel more fresh than they do currently.
Hey. Why are you selling out your own comrade to me?
Eventually you will understand, Master Haseo.
The following story beats are mostly just grinding with Adderley and Alkaid. There's a sort of love triangle thing going on where Adderley is jealous of Alkaid, and Alkaid is oblivious to it, but is clearly starting to have feelings for Haseo. We also get to start the next Super Boss questline, which is pretty much the same as last time, until we reach the bosses themselves. Basically run into vital vistas, fight some zombies, etc. At one point, Adderley has to go away in real life to visit a hospital for her hand that doesn't work, so it's just Haseo and Alkaid leveling alone for a period. Nala invites Haseo to a lost ground and gives him a piece of armor that will help in the next tournament fight against Hiragi. You really do get to fight every council member in Moontree within this game except for Kaede and Zelkova, although only Hiragi and Nala are in the arena. Once again, they make a note to point out that Hiragi is strange, in Haseo's own words, for being gender non-conforming. Just really tactless and ignorant dialogue surrounding the character throughout Volume 2. Nala, who is Yata, even refers to them as a man with a strong, stout heart, which Hiragi clearly wouldn't appreciate as we learn in the arena fight. Why is Nala helping us against his own guildmate? Well, he's Yata after all. He needs Haseo to win so he can fight Sirius. He doesn't explain why himself, but we get to know why because I spoiled it for you. Sorry about that. Sure enough, the announcer in the arena refers to Hiragi as he, and this pisses her off. You'd think Nala or Yata of all people would at least know Hiragi's preferred way of being addressed, but he doesn't seem to care about that, which kind of doesn't surprise me. With Yata, he doesn't care about much at all. To everyone in the game, Hiragi is weird or strange, and it's just exhausting to see them all treat her like a freak for no good reason. Despite seemingly feeling suspicious towards Sakaki due to his shadowy dealings with Bordeaux, Hiragi is still angry at us for embarrassing her with defeat in front of him. Pledging to never forgive us, this isn't the last time we'll battle against Hiragi in this volume. This is also where Adderley says she will be disappearing for a while due to the hospital visit. While out grinding for experience in the field with Alkaid, she will mention running into Endrance. Similar to Sirius, he seemed off, but not as aggressive. Endrance's mood is less related to an AIDA infection and more due to the trauma of losing Mia twice as Elk and now perceived to be once more as Endrance. With his defeat and the loss of his favorite cat/companion, Endrance just wanders aimlessly now, until he later ends up inexplicably encased in a crystal formation in Indiglut Lu. This isn't super relevant right now, but it will be. Alkaid lets Haseo have the dual swords found within the field, they're honeysuckles, and he asks her if she knows what they symbolize, as Shino once told him they mean devoted affection. This embarrasses Alkaid, forcing her to leave the scene. I like Alkaid a lot. She's probably one of my favorite characters within the game due to her being one of the more mature individuals, somehow. It may not seem like that initially, since she's hot-headed and oblivious to a lot around her, but she seems to be the first to always recognize her faults and how she needs to correct them. She has motivation for greatness, and will do anything she can to see it through aside from cheating. And despite feeling as though Haseo cheated in the arena, which again he did, she still managed to see there was at least some important reasoning behind his actions and even relented to asking for his help. Alkaid has pride, but it doesn't inhibit her, and we see her grow a lot within Volume 2. That's why a specific scene with her later is so brutal. Before that, Haseo gets asked to go on a side quest by Gaspard. He's worried about Syllabus, who hasn't been feeling very well, although he seems normal enough as we go through the motions. Later, he emails Haseo thanking him for going on an adventure with him. He had been feeling a bit down about losing the Emperor title and not participating in the arena again with Haseo, but has realized that there is more to the game than that. Speaking of maturity, Syllabus is probably like the de facto most mature individual in the game, bar none. Dude is the most reasonable, level-headed man in existence, and I love him for that. A lot of Haseo's friends constantly show him appreciation for even giving them the time. I don't know if I'd have the patience for someone like Haseo personally, but the patience of his friends has allowed him to become a better person throughout the volume so far. Without his allies, he may still be the bitter individual we saw at the start, and that's a big lesson GU tries to hit home. Despite him being cold often, we do see how he truly feels. Unfortunately, it's usually when it might be too late, like when Pai was attacked by AIDA. Haseo and the team reconvene for their next arena match, this time against Nala and 2 other individuals from the old folks' home. I love that this team is themed around player characters that look geriatric, only for him to be a 17-year-old. I wonder if his teammates know anything about him. Nala throws the fight, allowing Haseo to win. He wishes Haseo luck before disappearing. Sakaki talks to Bordeaux again after the match, but Hiragi shows up asking him to stop colluding with someone like that. This is really just an opportunity for a character to tell Hiragi how unmanly she is, calling her a pansy. Not only is Bordeaux an asshole, but she's probably transphobic too, go figure. Haseo receives an email from Kun to go deal with an area that has AIDA's signatures. Despite no longer being part of GU, Kun still wants to help people as much as he can. Here we finally get to see Skaith's new form due to Haseo's job extension, so let's talk about avatar battles for a little bit. I won't go over all the basics of avatar battles again, but there are moments in the game where Haseo will fight AIDA or another avatar using Skaith. Like Volume 1, any new enemies you face with your avatar will have their data added to the Serpent of Lore, and you can refight them for unique wallpapers as long as you do it before transferring your data to the next entry. With Haseo's job extension, Skaith has changed as well, gaining a new form as well as a few extra abilities. Previously, only certain projectiles could be slashed to block incoming damage. Now even normal shots from the enemy succumb to this, though I don't think I even tried to use this. Additionally, Skaith's melee combo gains a finisher that shoots out a projectile known as a chakram. So not much has really changed at all. The real differences lie in fighting the new types of AIDA and avatars we will see in this volume. And while those are nice, a good portion of these battles are just repeated AIDA we have seen before. The only thing more exhausting than fighting an avatar battle is having to repeat it. Not only is repeating it for the Serpent of Lore bad enough, but now you have to do the same for random AIDA that you repeatedly run into for the story. Avatar battles are meant to be the coolest aspect of the game, yet they fall flat due to their repetitive nature. Almost every battle feels the same despite the enemies seemingly having new mechanics. If they had just decided to upgrade Skaith's abilities more often, or tied that concept to tasks within the world, it may have felt more rewarding to try and attempt fights with different builds, or perhaps just pure linear upgrades. Instead, we get 2 nothing burger updates to Skaith's abilities in Volume 2, and all the battles continue to feel the same regardless. Dash to the side to dodge, spam your projectiles to stun the enemy, and then hit them with a melee combo. Rinse and repeat. These are so simplistic, you can do most of them with your eyes closed. There's only one that I felt was truly challenging, and we'll run into that one within the storyline very soon. After getting an email about having info on Sirius, Alkaid travels to a lost ground only to run into Bordeaux and be attacked by AIDA. Haseo follows Alkaid only to find her turning into a lost one. It's funny to me how Adelie is meant to be the, canon love interest due to looking like Shino, and how she helps Haseo grow, but it's Alkaid that holds all of the actual parallels to Shino. The dual sword she gave him symbolized something he learned from Shino. They both turned into lost ones, and she even says something to him that Shino said after being attacked by Tri-Edge. Haseo doesn't want to lose any more friends, so this is a real blow to him emotionally. The loss of Alkaid is another reminder that he hasn't been able to save anyone yet and has only lost things that are important to him. Luckily, he still has the support of everyone else, and this repeat of events from Roots show that Haseo has the maturity and strength to not go off the deep end again. It shows his growth despite the effects of loss. Before she finally passes on into her coma, Alkaid suggests Haseo find Entrance to take her place, and that's something I want to touch on shortly. Remember that she said that. Remember that that's gonna happen. In the news capture section of the desktop, you can see an article about Alkaid's player ending up in a coma, just in case you wondered what she looked like. You don't get to see that very often within .hack, but it does happen from time to time. Haseo has to break the news to Adelie, and she blames herself due to her epitaph being stolen. The AIDA server and their increased activity, as well as being able to infect so many players, most likely came about when Innis was stolen from Adelie. I don't know why Yatta would tell her that, as that's a pretty brutal weight to put on the girl despite it not really being her fault. She didn't even know she had an epitaph and was attacked out of nowhere. Ovan sends Haseo an email with the subject line, "I will become your goal." Very direct, yet somehow still meaning a little without more information. However, based on the last interaction with Ovan, we can assume he wants us to find and awaken all the epitaph users to fight against AIDA. With that, he tells us to head to Indiglet Lu to find out more info on what happened to Entrance. In a cutscene, we see Entrance encased in a giant crystal covered in chains. So dramatic. Bo is watching over Entrance and wishes he could help get him out, but is worried Saku would get mad at him over it. I believe it's implied that Saku put Entrance within the crystal due to the influence of AIDA, as we will see shortly, but it's not super clear. When we get there, Haseo runs into Saku this time. Saku, believing Haseo has come to steal Entrance, starts losing it, and we learn that she has not only been affected by AIDA, but is also the epitaph user for Gore the Machinator. I think they look better in IMOQ personally, but Gore fits very well for Sakubo as they are two individuals, as far as we know, in the same player character, similar to how Gore is a set of twins. Their depiction in GU is similar to a blue and red mirrored version of each other, and they swap between during the battle against Skeeth. This is a slightly more involved avatar battle, as when the blue version signifying Bo takes over, it can run away from you, forcing you to chase and attack it before it charges up an attack of its own. As an avatar, they also have the ability to data drain, which you have to mash out of to prevent losing more HP. It was a bit cooler in the original games because getting data drained would apply an insane amount of debuffs on Kite and the party. It made it more active to have to deal with that. Unfortunately, this is just another avatar battle, and there's not much to worry about here. Haseo data drains Sakubo, removing the AIDA infection from them. Despite saving him, Entrance is too lost within his own self-loathing to want to come out of the giant crystal he's in. Entrance felt like Mia was all he had. Mia was an individual that needed him and made every aspect of himself about helping her. Without Mia, Entrance feels like he is nothing, a broken shell of an individual, and this isn't the first time we've seen something like this happen to the character, as Elk went through it in IMOQ. Haseo explains that he too needs Entrance's help for the upcoming fight in the arena against Bordeaux. This seems to awaken something in Entrance, which I don't think is necessarily the healthiest thing for the guy. Shifting his desire to be needed from Mia to Haseo makes him obsessive about it, and it's as though he never learned anything from these events or the events in the past game. Elk/Entrance is just like this forever, or at least for now. Pai goes out with Haseo to a field and talks about the dangers of letting Adelie fight in the arena against Bordeaux since she can't protect herself from AIDA. For that reason, they decide to change the team from Haseo, Alkaid, and Adelie to Haseo, Pai, and Entrance, if he decides to show up. Adelie is obviously not happy about this, but I'm not happy about it either. What do you mean you can just change your registered roster in a tournament like that? People expect to be fighting against specific individuals. It's silly enough that you have the opportunity to level up in between matches, causing huge potential fluctuations within the power rankings, but you can also just swap out your party for anyone else at any time? How are people supposed to prepare for the next match if it's up in the air who is going to be in that match? Sure, there's still Haseo, but now he has two epitaph users backing him as well. Even worse, during the fight with Bordeaux, Entrance is nowhere to be found, so we went into this fight with two people. You'd think that would lock everything in, right? No! Midway through the battle, as Haseo is about to be attacked by AIDA, Entrance shows up to save him. How? You can just come in whenever you want as long as you are registered? That doesn't seem fair at all. What are the rules here? I get it's about the vibe more than logic, but come on, man, I would be so pissed if this happened to me. AIDA seems to overpower Bordeaux's PC, and we get put up against the hardest avatar fight in the game. It's awesome, actually. There's a lot more dodging and precise movement required, rather than the typical side dodging into bullet spam, and I really appreciated that. This and like maybe one fight later on really helps show what is possible for avatar battles to make them engaging, and it sucks they are so few and far between. Then, after this battle with Bordeaux, where we have no idea what happens to her, Entrance devotes himself to Haseo forever and becomes obsessed with him. Following that, Kun then takes Pai's place in the battle against Sirius. Again, what are the rules? The fight tries to be interesting by making it so Azure, Balmung, and Orca are untargetable. However, I imagine most players generally just focus on the leader of the team anyway, due to that being the criteria to win. Nothing feels different or noticeable from any other arena match due to the design of the arena inhibiting it. It is cool that we get to see Sirius perform a Divine Awakening at least, as we only really see that being done by Haseo, and a certain boss technically does something similar later on. After a while, Sirius also succumbs to the AIDA infection, and we learn we are fighting the AIDA that took Innes from Adelie. It's funny going from the hardest avatar battle in the game to one of the absolute easiest, but here we are. Like most AIDA, there is hardly anything special about it. After being data drained, Sirius passes out, and the Azure Knights are killed by the Azure Knights. Yeah, since the AIDA had the ability of Innes the Mirage of Deceit, it managed to make mirages of Balmung and Orca, although I'm not completely sure why it chose them specifically. This further solidifies for Haseo that he could be wrong about what Tri-Edge really is. If the Knights fight AIDA, why would Tri-Edge have put Shino in a coma? It doesn't make any sense. Sirius wakes up and explains that he was always afraid of losing in the arena. I think we all pretty much gathered that one, man, from your little freakouts. That fear was targeted by AIDA and allowed Sirius to become obsessed with power to allow him to keep his rank forever. He doesn't even seem regretful about it until Haseo explains that it was this power that made Alkaid a lost one, something Sirius wasn't aware of. AIDA may be interested in humanity, but it's really drawn to strong emotions. Those emotions tend to get corrupted as the player and the AIDA intertwine. People become obsessive, paranoid, and vengeful, with tunnel vision that pushes them to achieving their one desire or protecting themselves from their greatest fear. Why AIDA is like this and why it corrupts is currently unknown, but there is a lesson here. Power corrupts, and if something is too good to be true, it probably is. The real strength, the strength of Haseo and his friends, comes from their ability to recognize that it is through their own ability that they can continue to take steps forward. If you fall on the crutch of power handed to you like a treat, it will change you for the worse. We grow up through our own experiences, and one of those experiences is failure. If we didn't learn to adapt to our own fears and pick ourselves up after failing, we'd never progress anywhere. The theme of GU is growing up, and this is one of the biggest lessons surrounding that. Realizing what this crutch has done to someone he cares about, Sirius experiences immense grief, but this realization that blindly devouring power to defeat those around you is toxic and dangerous will hopefully make him a better person moving forward. Plus, this failure of losing his title should be a lesson that allows him to try again, to strive for the greatness he seeks, similar to Alkaid. After the match, the Epitaph users get together to discuss how the Azure Knights have the ability to defeat AIDA. Haseo wonders if they have the wrong idea about all of this. Maybe things aren't as they seem. Adelie arrives to congratulate everyone and shows that her arm is working once again. She then goes off to do some moon tree work with Sakaki. Now here's where things get off the rails and lead into the actual grind of the game. Haseo gets an email from his old friend Philo, a prominent character in the anime .hack roots. However, Philo should be dead at this point, confusing Haseo as the man died of cancer. Philo asks Haseo to come to a specific field in the game, and after some searching, we find his character off in some corner. It feels very rare to see unique looking characters like Philo outside of the major plot points, so it was really cool to see how they brought him over from Roots to show off. Philo tells Haseo to open his heart's eye before disappearing. In his place is an Alder's Key. These are now items that will begin showing up in almost every field and dungeon. By interacting with them, you'll get a key added into your inventory and sometimes multiple per interaction. Alder's keys are quite the grind. They allow you to unlock the seals of the lost weapons that we will get to see shortly. After collecting the initial keys that act as a tutorial, Philo sends another email to Haseo telling him to visit Hidden Forbidden Sacrament, another lost ground. Here we see there is a unique weapon for each of the main phases. Philo is there to greet us, but we learn that this is a pre-programmed husk acting as a messenger for the deceased. Antares shows up and explains he was asked by Philo to watch over Haseo and eventually lead him here. Despite this, he feels bad using the likeness of his dead friend to do so and apologizes. Lost weapons are designed to bestow a lost power to Epitaph user characters. How Philo knew about these will never be clear, but he was always a knowledge base throughout Roots. To unlock a sealed weapon, you need to spend a certain amount of Alder's keys, and these values increase for different weapons. Haseo's lost weapon only cost 5 Alder's keys, but others continue to grow. You'll be able to unlock the weapons for Haseo, Pai, Kun, Adeli, Sakubo, and Endrance throughout the first game. This leaves 2 phases left over for Fidhel and Corbenic. However, only a fan-like weapon for a Macabre Dancer class is left over, meaning one lost weapon has already been acquired by an Epitaph user we haven't met yet. I wonder if we know any unique-looking characters that happen to also be the Dancer class. Once you unseal a weapon, you then need to fight a small boss in order to acquire it. It's the same boss pretty much every time, but the name changes based on whose weapon you are working on. For Haseo, it's Death Eater, so you can probably guess the theme. Every time an Epitaph user gains their lost weapon, they seem to feel something close to them. Haseo feels Philo's spirit, I believe Endrance feels Mia, Saku feels Bo, or Bo could feel Saku depending on which one you have at the time. Probably a good time to mention that while you get the member addresses of Endrance and Sakubo, whether or not you get Saku or Bo is apparently based on Haseo's level, or Sakubo's level, or both, or neither, or it's random once you hit level cap. Sometimes it's locked behind plot points, other times it isn't. It's not super clear, and looking it up online has conflicting results. I generally went with the idea that if Haseo's levels were even or odd, you got Bo or Saku, and this seemed to work well enough for me, so that's what I basically assumed was the case in my head. I only needed Bo for one side quest later on, so I stopped worrying about it after that, and I believe Last Read Code allows you to select between the two manually at some point. Despite being sort of obtuse in how it works, which isn't really an issue, I enjoyed the aspect of a single PC being shared by, again, what we perceive to be multiple individuals. There's an episode of Sign called Intermezzo, and it's all about this concept. After fully grinding out all of the lost weapons, you'll get a final message from Philo. However, this seems to really be him, potentially living within the game after passing on. Listen, anything is possible in these games. I wouldn't be surprised if Philo became a part of the world after death. Haseo wishes for Philo to rest in peace before moving on, and we now have what are basically the best weapons in the game for everyone except Haseo. And if you did this grind, you may be a little cheesed to learn that they are basically all unlocked automatically in Volume 3. The reason these aren't the best for Haseo at the moment is because you can get the doppelganger weapons, and those really do just last the entire volume by a mile. In terms of RPG tropes, the super weapons are a tried and true staple. However, they generally require more convoluted and grindier solutions to receive. At least in some games, certain Final Fantasy games are notorious for this. While GU looks to implement some of these ideas, you can casually earn your lost weapons by playing through the storyline and getting all the Alder's keys you find along the way, maybe a few extra here and there to be safe. While this isn't particularly rewarding, especially for Haseo, it is still nice to boost the rest of your party with powerful weaponry, as this helps balance out our weakest aspects. So in theory, the concept is cool, and I get that these games are grindy enough as it is, sometimes in the least satisfying way possible, but I still would have liked to see some more cryptic or obtuse ways of acquiring these, rather than the singular goal of grinding enough Alder's keys to do so.
How you doing? This is Salvador Ihara's Online Jack!
It's finally time for another episode of Online Jack. In the last episode, Michiru ran off without telling us anything. Now we learn she got a message from Osamu asking her for help, as Sakaki is forcing him to become more and more violent. He He asks her to come to the school for help, so the crew heads over. However, Michiru won't let anyone enter as it's against school rules. I think it's like the middle of the night at this point. This is also where we see Salvador's bit of being a womanizer, as when Michiru gets stuck on the school gate, he ogles her rather than helping much. It's gross, and Michiru doesn't seem appreciative of it. Shocker. Yet they still seem to be oddly close out of nowhere. As Salvador hands her the camera, he keeps on his ear, and the two look at each other with an intense yearning that seems, again, to come out of nowhere. Michiru explores the school with Salvador on the line, and when she reaches her homeroom, she finds all the missing school children who seemingly attack her while in a trance-like state, ending the episode. Yeah, there's not much explanation here as we are left on a cliffhanger, unfortunately. Back in the main storyline, we see a cutscene of Adelie and Sakaki in Moontree. Sakaki explains he has a job for her. However, the manipulation tactics get bumped up to 11 as Sakaki explains that Adelie has committed a sin and must repent for it. Now that her epitaph is back, Adelie can hear AIDA within the guild hall. She pleads for Sakaki to escape with her, but Sakaki tells her to listen to the sound. He plays on Adelie's guilt, pointing out how many victims there were based on her mistake of losing her epitaph, despite having no idea she even had it. It's clear he wants something out of her and is trying to break her down in order to make it happen. Tearing down her self-worth, Sakaki explains that he will forgive Adelie as long as she devotes herself to him and follows all of his wishes, and it seems to work. This is Sakaki to a T, a manipulative freak who only cares about getting what he wants and is willing to hurt and use anyone around him in order to do it. It's immature, selfish, and dangerous. He's a destructive individual. Since Haseo is the emperor once more, there is another crowning ceremony to be had on the special island near Makanu. Adelie and Ovan don't show up this time, but Kaede appears and informs us that Sakaki has betrayed Selkova and has taken over Moontree. Why he needed Moontree doesn't seem very clear, and I don't think it ever really gets explained, or it's just for power as he seems to like being in charge. Zelkova was PK'd by Sakaki, and it seemed to be alongside an AIDA signature, meaning he's lost at the moment. He asked for Haseo specifically should anything happen to him. The team needs to breach Moontree and stop Sakaki, but they are unable to do so as the area is locked down. Specifically, it has become an AIDA server under Sakaki's control. Pai reminds Haseo that she is aware he found something in the original AIDA server, that Ovan01 data file. She asks him to hand it over as it may be useful in finding a way inside of Moontree. Whether or not those are her actual intentions for the file are unknown, but Yata seems ecstatic at the idea of being able to make a copy of it as it seems to be some sort of key. To enter Moontree, we once again need data seeds to utilize a sign left by Triedge. Once they are collected, the team, Haseo, Endrins, and Kun, head to another lost ground and make their way inside. Meanwhile, Yata gets visited by a system admin again who is concerned with the incident at the guild hall. They just seem to be there to grill him, explaining they want complete control of the world and expect results from Yata, which he seems to be delivering on. However, I guess this isn't fast enough for them and they are growing impatient. Despite his results, Yata has too many useless processes, whatever that means. Nala meets with Haseo and explains that a strong heart and ideals will allow them to not fall to AIDA. Haseo questions who Nala is, he's Yata, but they don't have time to worry about that now. It's funny, at the end of the last arena arc, we were basically at the end of the game as well. However, in this case, we still have a good amount of the story to go. Maybe it's because Rebirth was so front-loaded with content that didn't feel directly involved to the main storyline. It felt like a slow start with a rapid conclusion. Things feel paced way better within Volume 2, as we started strong, worked our way to the arena, and are now in a final act that is more than just finding the final boss. Moontree's guild hall is huge. Due to the length of the dungeon and the amount of boss fights involved, they were nice enough to include save spheres within the guild itself, meaning we don't need to leave. The hall feels like a maze, and we need to defeat various units and their leaders to get through. Basically rinse and repeat this over and over until we are done. First you fight Matsu's unit, and then have a rematch against Matsu at the end. It seems less like Matsu is defending Sakaki and more he is testing his own strength. That's why he doesn't use his broadsword in the fight, as he promised to throw away that part of his life from back when he was a PK. Following this, we fight Hiragi again as well, who finally asks us to stop Sakaki after being defeated. It seems she finally saw the light, or rather always saw it, but couldn't bring herself to face it. Finally, we fight the Unit 6 leader Sephora, who is part of the medical unit. However, this is a ruse, and the unit is a team of assassins or ninjas. Sephora doesn't say much, but with her defeat, we have faced the grand majority of captains within the guild, aside from Kaede and Sakaki. It's a fun boss gauntlet, even if the repetitive nature of the dungeons and battle systems makes it feel like a slog near the end. Once the team heads into the final area, Haseo ends up alone in what looks like a Japanese high school. Here we can hear the voices of various teachers and students that are most likely the memories of Adelie, showing that her life in the real world is harder than Haseo probably ever thought it was. Sure enough, we find Sakaki and Adelie in a large white classroom. Here, a dark version of Adelie explains that she did the best she could to fit in, getting piercings and brand name clothing to impress her friends as they didn't want to be seen with someone so uncool. However, her parents didn't like this and made her remove everything, sticking to her more plain attire. In the real world, Adelie struggles heavily with fitting in. She wants to be liked by her friends, but doesn't have the freedom to be what she considers likable due to her parents. Without that freedom, she struggles to find companionship in anyone and ends up not only alone, but ridiculed by those around her. Everyone's wants and desires for Adelie pushed her in opposite directions. What her friends wanted and what her parents wanted for her left her lost somewhere in the middle. Scared of being alone and having them leave her, Adelie tried to appeal to everyone, but this failed. We see these aspects of her in the game. Adelie is timid and frail. She desires to be liked by those around her and would bend over backwards to do anything anyone asks of her. Despite this, she's constantly belittled and manipulated by those around her, whether it's Haseo with the former or Sakaki with the latter. To her, it feels like she could be thrown to the curb at any point, and Haseo definitely didn't help with this much considering how badly he used to yell at her in Volume 1. Now she's at her breaking point, and Sakaki has used this opportunity to turn her into a tool for his own desires. He has taken the epitaph user Adelie and combined her with AIDA to make some sort of super being that he wishes to control. The reason we see her memories and the school locale is due to the analysis of AIDA from its interest in humans. It's the same as when we saw the coin locker back at the end of Volume 1, before it attacked Adelie. Sakaki forces Adelie's epitaph to awaken for her using AIDA, and we get to see Ines for the first time. Sakaki plans on ruling the online world with AIDA and using that to rework and take over the real world as well, one where no one ever fights and no one is ever oppressed by another. Pretty basic things I think anyone would say they want. Juvenile is a good way of looking at it. I wonder why his wants and desires are so juvenile. Haseo and Adelie have an avatar battle after he promises to save her. She gets cleansed of AIDA after a data drain, and this shocks Sakaki as he thought it would be impossible for the power of AIDA with an epitaph to lose. He runs off before he can be confronted, and everyone ends up back at the entrance of Moontree, including Adelie. She's lost in guilt over all the harm she believes she's caused, but Haseo gives her some admittedly rough words of encouragement, suggesting she work on fixing these problems rather than wallowing in them. Zelkova shows up again too and outright exposes Nala as Yatta for the big reveal. Yatta explains it was always about being as prepared as possible, but doesn't explain how he managed to play as two characters on the AIDA server. The reason he helped against Hiragi and lost on purpose to Haseo was so Haseo could fight Sirius. We also have no idea how Zelkova knows any of this, but he always seems to have information he shouldn't. Zelkova confirms that everyone is alright despite being on the AIDA server. Now the team needs to hunt down Sakaki for some reason. I don't think PKing him would really do anything, but there is still information to learn at least. We also get a short scene showing that Azure Kite or Tri-Edge has fully regenerated. What that means for Haseo is currently unknown. The team gets ready to go hunt Sakaki, and Adelie demands to come along. Haseo agrees as she needs this to move forward and pass Sakaki. Pai also joins the group. The way to reach Sakaki requires data seeds because of course it does, and the sign is in some random dungeon. After the party passes through the sign, we see that the Azure Knights are following them. However, Ovan steps in their way and finally releases that comically large lock on his arm as the four all start to battle. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what that means just yet or the conclusion. Sakaki is lamenting why his plan failed until we show up. He continues to try and manipulate Adelie by claiming she betrayed him. The dude is just the absolute worst. He even starts mocking her, having a legitimate crash out in the process. I think this is the only time we even hear someone say like bitch in this game, and he says it to Adelie of all people. It's crazy, the dude's doing too much. According to Sakaki, pain is required for change, and so large change requires large amounts of pain. He wants to see the world reborn by accessing reality through the net. If AIDA can be uploaded to the entire network, people could be controlled. This would be a paradise for Sakaki, but the removal of all free will for the individual. Adeli turns down Sakaki's offer of his new world because for her, it's too sad. No one is happy if they can't feel hurt, worry, or fall. Like we learned previously, failure is necessary for growth. If will is removed, if the world is perfect, there's no space for happiness or growth. Sakaki doesn't want a perfect world, he wants complete control and power. He's ignorant to this fact because he has convinced himself that what he is doing is just, no matter what he destroys along the way. Backed into a corner, he merges with AIDA and a battle ensues. It's nothing special, and after the fight he falls off the edge of the map. He's probably fine though, right? You know, probably, it's a video game. You think this is where the game may end, Sakaki defeated and another volume to search for a cure for the lost ones, but no, there's still a little bit to go. As they look over the edge of where Sakaki dies, who else appears but Ovan? He brings a gift in the form of the arm of Azure Kite, which he seemingly ripped off the character's body, just after he regenerated too. I'd be pissed, that took like a whole game. Ovan seems off, as if he's losing control. Claiming there is no more time, he explains that Haseo still doesn't know Tri-Edge's true identity. He offers to show how the signs are created and unlocks his arm. I don't know why, but I never realized how skinny this dude's arms are. I think because he had the bulkier sleeve on one arm and the giant container on the other. I always assumed he'd be a little more, I don't know, jacked than we find out here. And on that revealed arm, we see Ovan is infested with AIDA. A blade coming out of his shoulder, a blade held in his hand, and a steam gun in his other. 3 weapons signifying that it was Ovan who was Tri-Edge all along, meaning it was he who put Shino into a coma. Haseo is shocked, and before he can even blink, Pai and Adeli get absolutely floored out of nowhere, like just toasted. They fade away as if they may become lost ones as well, which Haseo worries about. After creating yet another sign, Ovan demands that Haseo come after him. Clearly there is something Ovan needs from Haseo. Whether he is doing this of his own volition or is being controlled, Ovan wants Haseo to fight him, and with all the events that have taken place, we can understand that Ovan has been attempting to make Haseo more powerful. But why? What would being defeated by Haseo give Ovan in this moment? Why is there no time left, and what does that even mean? Anyway, I guess I should go check my email and play some card games. After logging in again, you'll get the member address of Matsu. You also get Antares back during the crowning ceremony. As it turns out, Pai and Adeli are just fine, and we even know where to track down Ovan. He's in one of the Lost Grounds that was an area explored heavily in Roots originally. We need data seeds to activate all the pillars surrounding a large portal, but we're missing a few. We hunt for one, and then Pai gives us another from the file we handed over. So was it just not some sort of secret key for Yada then, or will we learn more about it in the final volume? Once the portal is active, we can head to another lost ground and confront Ovan. Here, he suggests that everything spun out of control from this place. Haseo asks if Ovan PK'd Shino, and he confesses, but we still don't know why. Almost worse, he explains that he is the one that fed Sakaki the information that allowed him to do all he has done so far. Ovan has hurt a lot of people inadvertently through Sakaki and through his own actions, unforgivably so in my eyes. He claims this was all for Haseo to become stronger, strong enough to defeat him. This was all a constructed plan to see to that goal. We battle against the true Tri-Edge here. This one is a lot more involved as he can constantly perform a special attack to deal unblockable damage, and he summons various AIDA orbs that can heal him for Tim. It's very similar to some of the IMO Q fights against Cubia from what I can remember. After defeating Ovan, we learn that he is the epitaph user for Korbenik the Rebirth. Man, that would have gone harder than the last game, right? This is probably the second hardest avatar battle in the game next to the spider that Bordeaux turned into, but it's still just more of the same really. After data draining him, Ovan suggests that maybe it was too soon after all and disappears. Whatever he wanted from Haseo, it seems as though he didn't get it in this battle. Feeling down and defeated, Haseo's moping is interrupted when Yatta shows up to congratulate him. He praises Haseo for defeating the true Tri-Edge and makes it sound as though he knew about this all along. He claims PKing Tri-Edge is merely catching a tiny glimpse of the truth, so what was the point then? Why even fight Tri-Edge if this doesn't stop him and wake everyone up? What plan does Yatta have and what else is he hiding? Like how Sakaki manipulated Adeli, Yatta looks to continue manipulating Haseo for his own gains. Yatta at least notes that they need to continue learning everything about AIDA to learn all of the facts and bring back the lost ones. After a small credit roll, we see the final palace emperor, Taihaku, get attacked by something unknown off screen. Following this, Haseo goes to meet up with Adelie at Hallgron's Cathedral. After a brief conversation there, Ovan appears behind Haseo, shocking both of them. He continues to plead for Haseo to become stronger, but specifically strong enough to destroy him. Is it possible that what Ovan wants is to be destroyed fully, and for what reason is that? After all, we have no idea why he is infected with AIDA at the moment. Does he believe Haseo is the means of curing him? We'll get to find out about that and more in the next entry, .hack.gu, Volume 3, Redemption. But for now, we are finally finished with this storyline.
Haseo, I want to say...
What's wrong?
Become stronger, Haseo. Strong enough to destroy me.
Overall, I think my biggest issue with the storyline in GU so far has been dropped plot points and major inconsistencies, especially regarding the arena. Still, the pacing of Volume 2 felt way better to me than Rebirth, since I found that overly slow for the first 2/3 of the experience. We started strong here with the AIDA server, and continued pushing through to the arena and beyond, with plenty of bosses and new unique locations near the end. It was nice, and really makes Rebirth feel like the intro it is. We can only hope that the final volume lives up to this, but we aren't done yet. We still have some post-game to discuss, and the final episode of Online Jack. In the final and climactic episode of this volume, we see Michiru about to give an announcement outside the school during the day. Here she explains what happened prior, and we get to see it for ourselves. Just as Michiru was about to be attacked by the children in her homeroom, Salvador jumps through a window to save her. In the distance, we see Toru Uike, who was seen earlier in the video when the professor showed up. Aihara asks if Toru is Sakaki, and sure enough, we got another 10-year-old doing too much in the .hack universe. As we already know, Toru wants to change the world using AIDA. Whatever he was doing with AIDA in the world seems to have given him some power outside of it, as he manages to electrocute Salvador when the man tries to grab the boy's shoulder. How that works, I have no idea. Nor do I know how the info Ovan gave him has allowed him to do so much that no one else seems to be utilizing. This appears to knock Salvador out, and Michiru gets attacked by the children, who are impossibly strong. Luckily, this is interrupted when the police or security show up, and Toru somehow disappears. With a bruise on her arm as proof, Michiru pleads for people to be careful, and suggests that parents shouldn't let their kids play online games due to the dangers currently in place. But what of Salvador? Well, a news article suggests he had been made comatose and turned into a lost one, but we can actually find out for ourselves that this isn't true. By reading some community forums, we can find out that a woman was hit on in the game. If we go near where this happened, we can find Kazubolo, a unique-looking player character who is operated by Salvador Aihara. By talking to him in various locations, he will let slip who he is and that he is resting in the hospital and playing in secret when he has the opportunity to. So he's alright at least, but why have us search for him? If you manage to find all of the hiding locations, you'll unlock a new wallpaper for your desktop, as well as a secret password. In English, it says Nurse Carnival. However, there is nowhere to use this password in the game, even in the next volume. That's because this was part of the Japanese-only Find Salvador Aihara campaign, and the passcode was necessary to enter into the contest for various rewards. Unfortunately, the West never got anything in regards to this. So what will happen to Salvador and Michiru now? The mystery has had some big revelations, but nothing seems to have been solved at the moment. While Haseo and his party try to save everyone in the world, can Salvador save those in the real world as well? Find out in the next volume of .hack.gu. While still rather short, I do enjoy how the final episodes of the volumes generally up the ante a significant portion. You know, the bloody writing on the walls and the reveal of Sakaki are big in terms of the game's storyline and lore. Still, I just wish they were more, bigger and more consistent, the way they used to be. Sure, it's the time of the net and online shows and all of that, but you could still go that route while giving me a longer, more thorough OVA to watch at the same time. Then again, .hack.gu isn't IMOQ, so you can't expect everything to be the same. The issue is that they seem to want those similarities to be there, so when aspects of your game and the experience are worse than the originals, I mean, of course it's going to leave a bad taste in the mouth. With the main storyline done, we still have some post-game to take care of, like that Kazubolo search. Now is probably when you would be cleaning up any side campaigns and CrimsonVS, as well as maxing out your Book of 1000 for this volume. If you care about it, you could also level up and max the affection values of everyone in your party within this volume. The max was Yellow level 3 in Rebirth and base level Pink in Reminisce. Pink will then have 5 levels to unlock once we reach Redemption, but you could get a head start now if you desire. Other than that, there isn't much else to do or talk about. However, we do have these super bosses to defeat, and one of these was the only battle where I actively needed to prepare to make sure we cleared it. By going through those special areas where you run into vital vistas, you'd eventually be taken to a dark version of Morigu Barrel Wall. Here, Haseo and the party of your choice run into the One Sin, a legendary creature from all the way back in the world R1. It was defeating the One Sin that made the real Balmung and Orca the descendants of Fianna, a title given to them for the feat, making them Balmung of the Azure Sky and Orca of the Azure Sea. See the similarities here with the Azure Knights in GU? While you do not fight the One Sin in IMOQ, we now get to in GU. It's a bit underwhelming though. In the original lore, the monster was meant to only take damage from the opposite element of whatever it was attacking with. In this version, you just need to break the armor off of both of its arms, where one is a light element and the other dark. Once you do that, you then attack its core for a bit before repeating the process. It's also incredibly weak if you're maxed out by this point. Just an underwhelming fight overall. The game even warns you that no other attacks work against it unless you use the opposite of light or dark. But I didn't even remember that at the time and still had no problem. I thought maybe it had something to do with the doppelganger weapons, which don't seem to have elemental properties, or maybe the game was referring specifically to spells. It felt like another thing that was a concept and sort of got dropped in development without thinking about taking out the literal tutorial window telling you to utilize it. And sure enough, it doesn't matter, you just attack any active arm with any active item you have and it just dies. There's no actual strategy there other than that. Luckily, upon defeating this version of the monster, you get the area where it's too dark Morigu Barrel Wall, and can travel there again to fight a variation of the boss known as God Eater. This monster hits harder, has higher armor to break, and way more HP, making it a lot more challenging. Due to the extended length of the fight and all the damage, if you didn't properly kit out your party with healing items and items to regenerate mana, you may find that everyone slowly begins to run out of steam. This was the only time in the game where I even thought about doing this, while this was a more commonplace necessity in IMOQ. The reward for defeating the One Sin is the Flickering Scale accessory, the best accessory in the game so far. Similarly, God Eater gives us Rainbow Scale armor.
My fight is over. But then, what's really changed since I began? I'm tired. Shino, I'm done. For now, I just want to go back to the real world and rest.
.hack as a series is one of my all-time favorite media collections. While the games are great in many aspects, I've always been a bigger fan of the animes, manga, novels, and more. The games are near and dear to me, of course, but every time I play them, especially with GU, I am always reminded of how their gameplay and concepts seem to age as time goes on. GU just feels too slow and too brutal with its optional grinds for me to want to revisit more than a few times. Maybe that's why so many changes were made to Last Recode. By becoming stronger faster and simplifying some elements, the game is easier to work through overall. Generally, I love friction in my games. I like those crunchy old school experiences that feel rough around the edges. Despite some faults, I think IMOQ really embraced that aspect. Trying to emulate the feeling of older MMOs at the time, where you could buff the ever-loving hell out of your characters and push the game to its limits. Even with its updated battle system and faster combat, GU feels less technical overall than your typical battle in IMOQ. And I think that's really sad because battling is what you are going to be doing for the majority of your playtime. Unless you plan to go clear out some side campaigns for the second time, because they thought it was wise to just repeat content between volumes. I'm not asking for a miracle in development here, but repeating the campaigns that were in Volume 1 is ludicrous in my opinion, considering how brutally slow, mindless, and drab they tend to be. It feels like GU wants to be more with each volume, wants to be bigger than IMOQ, but a huge portion of this big game is just repeated content from the previous volumes. It's just padding and not actually adding anything worthwhile to the experience. While the story is inconsistent, and while one could wonder about many things that will simply never get resolved, I did still enjoy the core ride they put you through, following Haseo's journey and watching him grow up, but also watching those around him mature as well. It felt really dark when I was a kid playing this for the first time, and seeing those little gleams of light and hope were a great contrast to the suffering presented to you as well. I think GU is a heavily flawed experience. Maybe part of that is the volume structure, and I'm sure some people are happy that it is probably done away with whenever 0 releases. Link also didn't have this. I always thought of the concept as novel, but if you build around it expecting to reuse the same side quest systems over and over, that just feels lazy to me. Reusing assets, that's fine. Reusing concepts like asking me to pass out flyers over multiple volumes, that's terrible. All in all, while it is flawed, GU still manages to hold a special place in my heart alongside the rest of the .hack series. Despite my issues with it, I still managed to finish all of the content I wanted to and make it to Volume 3, and I'm excited to explore that initial end of the storyline and all new features introduced. So I hope you look forward to continuing this journey into GU with me. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. I'm Super Red, and this is the Patreon section. You can show up in the Patreon section as well by using the link down in the description to support the channel. Shout out to Alberio, Gim Best YouTuber 69, Dylan Delaney, Critical Link, Gloomerous, Backdraft 677, Natsuki Mamamura, Brendan Hesse, Metalhead Frank, Ashtray, Cyberworm, Strangely, Rosa Leo, and Mr. Janky, who also proofreads the scripts. A lot of, if not all of my scripts, so special shout out to Mr. Janky. Thanks so much for watching everyone, and I will see you in the next video.
Dol Dona.